Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Would you drink anything special? Did like Evan make this for you?
Yes, Black Rifle. I don't know what blend it is.
I'm gonna be fully transparent. The I only like the bougie Black Rifle blends.
The bougie blends?
Yeah, like
like the Ethiopian stuff, like
Yeah,
the
like Evan-
lemony sort of.
well, Evan will be like, oh, so I sole source selected this this bean from this place and I roasted it this way. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be good, and it's good.
Well, every year I do elk hunting camp with Evan. We share an elk hunting camp in California, so we just got back, and so Evan makes coffee for us every day. Yeah. So he gets up and he fucking hand measures everything, and he brings his own fucking special blends. He had 2 different blends because he knows I like a dark roast. So he had a dark roast, and then he had this really bizarre, exotic coffee that tasted different than anything I'd ever had before. It was like had like a kind of like almost like a sweet, like almost like a tea taste to it. Like he's a master.
You know, he was using tax-paying dollars to start his coffee obsession.
Was he really?
Yeah. So when he was both in group and at the agency, he would take, we have discretionable funds that you can spend on whatever, and area improvement is an appropriate way for you to spend money. So he would buy like a $20,000 espresso machine and, a $3,000 grinder in some middle of nowhere Ford operating base where he's making coffee and like just being a total nerd. It's all taxpayer money. It's awesome. Like finally something's being used with taxpaying dollars that benefits the soldier, which is rare.
We ran out of coffee filters. And someone was like, well, just use paper towels. And he just went, fuck no, we're not going to use paper towels. I was like, dude, we're not using paper towels.
Just look at him. He's little, but he's mighty.
He's very serious. Do not use paper towels. Like
love that
this,
dude.
he's very serious about his coffee.
We're skydiving next month.
You've been to his place in Utah?
Yeah.
The lab that he has set up at Black Rifle?
Yeah, he made me do like
insane.
One of the the little tastes where they like do this thing with the spoon, you know, and then you have to smell it first, and you have to do something with your tongue. And I was like, what are we doing here?
I can't do that. I can't go that far. It's like with wine. Like when people are like, oh, hints of oak. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's good.
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
You can do that.
This goes well with what I'm eating right now.
I have a friend, my friend Matt. I'll call. He's a real wine freak, and I'll just like show him a photo of like the wine page at a restaurant. I'm like, what should I get? And he'll tell me. He'll just text me. He loves it. So I'm like, good. I've got that farmed off.
Yeah.
I don't have to.
If I can outsource things that I don't have to keep on my brain.
Yeah, I do not want to have to pay attention.
We
to
are
that.
so good.
And that's how I do it with coffee too. I just like Evan's like, I'll send you a bag of that stuff. I'm like, great. What was it again? I forget what it was, but it was like fruity and fucking.
Another one, like as Jack Carr is so incredible. Evan. So I'm skydiving I was supposed to be skydiving all last week, but I was in Israel. And then, so I had to move it to the right. Because we're doing this Moab jump with a bunch of your friends, Mike Sorelli and Mike Glover and Evan. And so I need to knock off the dust a little bit. So I hit Evan, and he sends me this like super fancy designed helmet from Black Rifle, a skydive helmet, a G3 for just sent it to me, and I was like, all right, this is really cool. I'll be skydiving with this helmet that is way above my ability because I'm just total sky trash.
I have never, and I'm not doing it. I have zero desire. I don't get it. I don't get Andy Stump with his fucking flying squirrel suit. Fuck you.
Yeah, he'll be there too.
I'm not doing that. Of course, that's easy for him. He's used to the flying squirrel suit.
I think it's
regular skydiving ain't shit.
I asked Andy if he'd be interested in helping me do like base jump stuff and wingsuit stuff, and just all I got was no. And it's like, can you expand on that? He's like, all of my friends that I used to do this with are dead, so no, Tim. It's like, okay, well, great conversation. That was fun.
That is the death rate in that stuff. Like he was telling me, like how many, like if you send out fucking 20 people to do that, how many come back? It's not good.
No.
Yeah, you
find a different hobby.
It's not good. Did you ever see the video where the guy is trying to fly in between the arches of a bridge?
Yes. Yep.
Ooh, the sound, the clang of metal when his meat and bones hit that bridge.
It was terrible. It was like a watermelon traveling at 200 miles an hour, impacting metal.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine what that sound, like you imagine what that sound would be until you hear it. And that was a watermelon with bone slamming against metal, which was a human, which is now nothing.
Nothing. A splatter. It's instantaneous. I mean, he's probably going 100 miles an hour, you know?
Yeah. Faster.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. How fast do you go with those things?
Like if 140 to, so like if you're in a dive position, you're going 160 to 200 miles an hour. And if you're stable flying, maybe 140.
160.
Yeah. So when you're like navigating like he was, I bet he was going 140, 150 miles an hour.
Jesus, which really makes you appreciate nature and evolution. That the peregrine falcon does what does it do? Like 220 or something insane?
And can change on a dime, just like flip.
It says you can go up to 220 horizontally.
Oh,
Fast.
220 in a car fucking feels insane. I mean, I've never done it. I don't know, but I mean, I've done we went to the local racetrack, that place up there, Coda. Oh, our light's not on. We went to Coda recently, and Coda gets up to we were in a Lamborghini, went to 147. That feels fucking insane at a racetrack. How's this thing go on, James?
You got it.
Oh, there we go. Oh,
Yeah,
change the colors.
that long straightaway into that almost 180 turn on a motorcycle is one of the scariest things I have ever felt.
Have you done that track?
Yeah.
Oh, that track is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, except for that, my testicles were up into my stomach.
Yeah.
And I thought I'm a brave, courageous human, and then I was just 100% coward on a racetrack.
Right. Well, at least if you wipe out, you just kind of slide. Yeah. We were watching Formula One there. That is fucking wild. Those guys are flying. They're going so much faster than regular cars. You really get a perspective when you've actually driven around the car in a GT car, the track rather, and then you see those guys.
It's wild.
Oh.
And there's levels too. Every time that I think that I'm good at something, then you go with somebody that's actually good at that thing.
Yes.
And then you're just like, I'm so trash.
Yeah, I thought I knew how to drive a car until I got lessons. And I'm like, oh, I suck at driving too.
Yeah.
It's great.
There's a long litany of things that I suck at.
Yeah.
Which are just made so clear.
And then unfortunately, I don't want to suck at it. So now I have this new addiction.
Oh,
now
no.
I want to go to the fucking track all the time, which is not the best thing for time management.
Yeah.
Because it's a fucking full day thing, you know? It's like golf or something like that. I've never played golf and I won't play golf because it's a time management thing.
Yeah.
I don't have that. Ron White and Tony Hinchcliffe, they go out and they play for fucking 8 hours. I'm like, bro, I don't have 8 hours ever. I have 8 hours
you
to
get
sleep.
stuff done on the golf course. No, you don't.
You don't. No, you don't. Maybe if you're a hedge fund manager and you want to figure out how to rip people off.
I enjoy shooting and golf have a lot in common, like precision rifle.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that portion of it. So I definitely don't need to do this other thing with a club and a ball.
I have a pool addiction, which is very similar. Billiards. I play pool at a pretty high level. And I have a real problem with that. I could play 8-9 hours a day.
Those are
easy.
Those are dorks.
Yeah.
Real pool nerds.
Oh yeah.
They're genius.
Yeah.
And they're weird. And they're so freaking good.
They're so fucking smart. That's what's crazy. Really good pool players are fucking smart because you have to be. Because you have to. It's problem solving. You have to figure out how to manage geometry and also feel, and then you have to execute the shot too under pressure.
Yeah, very similar to jiu-jitsu in this
archery.
Yeah, this physical application of this mental complex problem.
Yeah,
that is in real time changing. Every second.
Yeah, I think jiu-jitsu is the most complex of those things, and but it's also the one that breaks your body the most. That's the problem with jiu-jitsu.
I'm doing really good in this I've totally changed now that all of these monsters have moved to Austin, and another example of where I thought I was just this freak grappler until I met real freak grapplers,
right?
And I'm like, man, I'm not even top 20. I'm maybe top 100 now, and so that realization with the Giancarlo Bedonis and the Gordon Ryans, the Victor Hugos, and the Marigellis, and the Craig Joneses,
isn't it wild how many fucking people are here? Shanji's
all in
here
my
now
gym.
too.
Yeah.
Everyone's.
I was
here.
in his academy this morning.
It's amazing.
I mean, no, it's not amazing, Joe. It's not. That's what I'm saying. This is the spectrum of great. Another thing that I'm trash at, but I've totally changed. I want to do jiu-jitsu until I'm 100 years old. And so I'm so intentional about what my roles are, who my live goes are with.
That's important.
It's so important.
And also you're very good at keeping up your physical body, which a lot of people are not. They just roll.
Yeah.
And they just train, which you really can't.
No, I split my effort in a week almost evenly between, grappling, striking, physical development, strength, speed, and then like that long recovery, longevity aspect of it. Like that's how my week is broken into for my training.
You almost have to treat your body like a pit crew. You know, like you really have to change your fucking tires. You got to do the whole thing. You have to. You can't just like, they look good. No, you got to like really treat it like there's a methodical approach that must be done in order to race.
Yeah.
If you want to train, you kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not good for the ego.
It's not.
I got away with it when I was 25 and fighting, but
yeah. Well, you got away with it while you were also active duty, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I should have been a little bit more intentional and disciplined about how I spent my time. I took youth for granted.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Youth is wasted on the young. Isn't it wild?
Especially when you're dumb.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Well, most young people are dumb.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be young people that do the kind of stuff that we enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did dumb stuff. How's life?
Everything's good, man. Everything's really good.
I was shooting bow yesterday. My buddy Tyson got Rob from Roca gave him a bow. Another great person that does great things for people that I resent.
Oh, Rob's great.
Yeah. I'm like, you never gave me a bow. Like, I was never given a bow. Like, how does this just happen? So he came over and...
Do you want one?
No, I got a great bow.
Where do you get a bow from?
From Archery Country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's my spot.
Yeah, I was there this morning, got...
I got an Archery Country t-shirt on right here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I got 6 new arrows today. I shot through one of my archery targets and it hit the wood in the back, and I was like inspecting my arrow and I saw like there's this little tiny fine line along the side of it, and I was like, you're done.
Oh, carbon?
Yeah.
You shooting carbon? Yeah. You got to be really careful about that. A lot of those explode and they go through people's hands.
I love those videos. I can't watch them, but I love them. Do you watch them? You do watch them.
I've seen them, yeah. I don't enjoy them. I check all my shit religiously, though, because of that. I had a Teflon glove that I tried to wear for a while. A lot of guys wear a Teflon glove to make sure that never happens, but it's never happened to me. I've been shooting a bow for 10 years.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
I've built about 180-degree 3D archery range in the backyard and back 3 acres. Yeah, I got full-size elk and
nice
pigs and coyotes and a bunch of little deer. So anywhere from 100 yards. And I hate that I have to say yards
instead of meters.
Yeah,
we should have changed over. We almost did when I was in I guess I was in high school and they were trying to change everybody over.
It'd be just so much easier.
It makes more sense.
Yeah.
America's so fucked up with that. We're like, nah, fuck the rest of the world. Yeah. Inches, bitch.
We made it to the moon off inches and feet. Great, thanks. That was a long time ago.
And fuck soccer.
Yeah.
The whole rest of the world is like on the metric system. Like, nah. Yeah. I love how England still sticks with pound. Well, they do stone. They're still with the stone thing.
Dumbest unit of measurement.
When we used to do fights over there and I had to do the weigh-ins, I used to have to say stone as well as pounds. It's like, okay. Yeah. Why are we doing that? Is this confusing when I just say pounds?
It's confusing enough when we have to throw on how much somebody weighs in kilos and then how much they weigh in pounds. And we throw in stones.
Yeah.
And we're just like, okay.
Kilos, Celsius, all that. Like I was watching this video this guy was talking about, well, it's 30 degrees out, so it's a nice day to go out and shoot. I was like, 30 degrees? I was like, oh, he's in Canada. All right. Okay, you communist. Using that bullshit metric system.
They really are right now, too.
They are. They're full on.
I never thought it would happen that fast.
Bro, it's so bad. I'm worried that my podcast is going to be censored in Canada because they just passed some new fucking legislation where they're allowed to... Like the whole idea is like it's under the guise of Canadian content because they have a Canadian content law where they like you have to have a certain amount of Canadian-based content on like the radio and television and stuff like that. You can't just have all stuff from all over the world, whatever people like. You have to have like a certain percentage of it has to be Canadian. And so under the guise of that, but really it's Trudeau trying to enforce censorship on podcasts because...
But they always do it in the cover, and every dangerous freedom censoring group does it under this idea of they're doing it for the greater good.
Yes.
It's like whether it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, or it's making sure that not disinformation or misinformation is being populated within the masses. It's always through this veil of no, it's for your benefit. But you pull the veil back a little bit, and it's just censorship.
It's just control.
Yeah, they're just trying to manipulate what information's available for people to try to base their opinions off of.
Have you ever seen that video of Trudeau from like 10 years ago? I mean, it might have been from more. It might have been like 2010. And he's talking about how he's opposed to... Do you got coffee in there?
Yeah.
Salute, my friend. Cheers. He's opposed to regulations with guns because he's like, regulations are the first step that they take, and the ultimate goal is to remove your gun. So we will not have regulations. Yeah. Like he's talking about this like in 2010 or 2011.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was following a playbook.
Yeah.
So he absolutely didn't believe that though, because he knew that within a decade, he would be trying to confiscate every single gun that he could get his hands on and make transfer of pistols illegal. Which it's illegal.
Yeah.
If I have a pistol and I want to sell you a pistol, I cannot. That's it.
So wild. It's so wild how quick it changed over there. They used COVID to just enforce these sweeping legislations across all sectors. They don't have a free speech. They don't have a First Amendment over there. So they have hate speech laws, which can be interpreted so vaguely. And this is what Jordan Peterson was rallying against, like back when they had this bill that was set up to make people use someone's gender identity. And he was like, well, what gender identity are you talking about? There's 78 current gender identities that someone can choose to identify with, including just complete nonsense, made-up words, and it's going to keep going. I don't know how many of them there are now. But he was like, the only way you enforce this is you're going to have to use force. And it's like the rule of law. Now it's like you're going to send armed thugs to arrest people for not using made-up words. Like this is where this goes. Especially Peterson, who knows so much about communism and so much about where the darkness that it leads down to.
Yeah. I love that he approaches it both from like a philosophical perspective and a historical perspective. He is so well versed and knowledgeable in the argument that they're making from this position. This is where it leads to. And not only do we understand this in human nature, and here's a bunch of examples of it, but then also historically, here's a bunch of examples of it. So it makes it really hard to dispute what is really logical and rational. And okay, if you're here and they want to go from point A to point B, this is the process for them to get there.
Yes.
And you're like, yeah, another brilliant man that does a lot of good.
Well, you need a guy like him who has such a deep understanding of history and also is a clinical psychologist who understands the human mind on a very, very deep level.
Yeah.
So he can explain things in a way that is almost impossible to refute. Like he's got all his bases covered when he discusses a subject, and he can fucking pull it off of his head. The guy uses no notes, and he just will quote things and explain things in the most complex manner and make it absorbable to everybody.
Yeah, he and I are we're in a parallel fight right now on the education side. I have Apogee, which is I have a physical school here, and we have online mentorship, and we're launching an additional 50 schools this year. Started a big, huge foundation, the Apogee Foundation, all to try to turn this public school problem on its ear as we've indoctrinated this entire generation to hate America. And we're in a really scary position. Military's having recruiting issues. We're having identity problems in every imaginable way with this, Gen Z and millennials just not knowing what their purpose is. And when you look at the public school system and the Department of Education, it's just a broken system. Teachers are great. Most of them, on majority, I think, have a real pure heart to do good, but they're in a system that is forcing them, or they're allowing to manipulate kids to radicalize them into really anti-American ideas. And something has to change, because the current trajectory, we're screwed. The lack of individual responsibility and, as Jocko would say, extreme ownership of what the issues are and how to solve them are absolutely absent. We have entitlement, we have, accepting these identities, we have obviously this mental health crisis, and all of it really goes back when you look at the pandering that is happening in public schools for 8 hours in a day. It's just like, there's no way that you could come out of that process not being jacked up.
Right. You're going to get some of it's going to leak into your brain, no matter how much your parents talk to you or no matter how much you have your own ideas about life. There's a certain amount that people just absorb from their atmosphere and accept. There's a certain amount of it that people just accept.
And it's so manipulative when, a third grade teacher is assigning you a project of, okay, you are a Palestinian freedom fighter here in the United States. What are some ways that you can help the Palestinians in Gaza be free? That is your assignment. Give me 5 examples. Or even better, you'll get 5 points extracurricular for extracurricular activities where you went and did something to help at a Palestinian protest or pro-Palestinian. And it's just like you've effectively radicalized a kid into a freedom fighter with one assignment. Like they have no choice but to participate if they want to receive a good grade. That was on the news yesterday. That exact situation was happening, and it's detestable.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre that people don't see where this goes. They don't see the end of it. And it's not to say that the plight of the innocent Palestinians is not a fucking terrible situation to be in. If you're stuck in Gaza under the rule of Hamas, and then you have Israel just keeps everybody detained in this one area, it's not good for them either.
No, 2.4 million people in an area the size of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I like to use the word stuck because they are. We have 240 hostages that are in Gaza, like legitimate Israeli, American, Brazilian, from almost every single nation. There's hostages in Gaza currently from October 7th. But the 2.4 million people, the Palestinians that live in Gaza, they are being held hostage by 30 to 40,000 radical Hamas and about 7 other radical organizations that are terrorist organizations. So your word stuck could not be more accurate. There are great, peaceful, wonderful Muslims in Gaza that voted in a terrorist organization when the PLO and Hamas were trying to figure out who is actually going to be the ruling party of the Palestinian people. Hamas won out, and now they are the size of a cartel being funded. $70 million a year from Iran is being pumped into Hamas. And all they're doing is taking every little bit of humanitarian aid and converting it into military resources. And those poor people, those poor Palestinians, are trapped in between all of this. It's wild. It's such a complex problem that is solvable, but it's heartbreaking when you look at the individual level of the kids that are there and the women that are there and the civilians that are there are literally trapped, as you said, stuck. And if you're Israel, how do you fix it? If you're Palestinian, how do you fix it? When it's so evident that Hamas wants one thing, which is the elimination and genocide of all Jews.
And are there any Muslim countries that are accepting Palestinian refugees?
No, they never have.
That seems insane because there's all this support for the Palestinians. If you're Islamic, if you're a Muslim and you want to support these Muslims, wouldn't you support the idea that your country, this Muslim country, would accept those people and they could be in a place where they could be free?
Yeah, 22 Arab nations, over 40 Muslim nations internationally, right? There's one Jew nation. And that one Jew nation, Israel, has done more for the Palestinian people than any other nation ever. So it's ludicrous and it's insulting to the Palestinian people to start throwing stones at Israel when in fact they're the only group that has been trying to protect and in any administrative way provide food, water, and resources to the people that are there. Over 40 Muslim countries, not one of them is accepting any Palestinian refugees.
What is the answer to that? Why?
They're a problem that is with the radicals that are embedded inside of them. How do you differentiate between who is a peaceful Muslim Palestinian to who is a radical that is working for Hamas? How do you do that?
Right.
So as I'm getting evacuation requests 2 weeks ago, and we're trying to be good, proper, judicious servants, how do I know that this name of this person is not trying to fill out an evacuation form to be assisted to move from an area that they're currently denied in, where their area of movement is restricted for any other reasons besides that they need help? Like, it's a really hard multiple levels of truth to try to peel back to figure out who some of these people are and what their intentions are. And it's been that way for a really long time. If you go all the way back to like 1987, when Hamas really started moving and fighting with the PLO for control of the area, when Yasser Arafat was meeting with Clinton and the Prime Minister of Israel, and they're making negotiations in Oslo, and all the way up to, the first Intifada, to the second Intifada, to then now suicide attacks, pizzerias blowing up. Like, how do you determine who is good and who's bad? Do they have a suicide vest? Do they not? Or like, what are their intentions? It's wildly hard.
You have been involved just in the last few years in two of the most heartbreaking scenes that we've seen depicted in the media. The botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. You leave that, and now you just got back from Israel.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm over what's happened the past 3 years. There's actually 4 consecutive. So the day I got back from Afghanistan, because I went from Afghanistan to Albania and Brazil and Italy and Greece to try to have them take refugees. So my post-Afghanistan work lasted a few more weeks because there were a lot of Afghan refugees and non-American citizens that weren't even Afghanis that we had to figure out where we're going to put. So that carried off, the attack happened September 26, or August 26, where the bomb at Abbey Gate went off and the American service members were killed. And, we left a few days later. 2 weeks later, we're now into mid-September. I come back, and I immediately, the day I land, I get assigned to go down to the Mexican border. And I spent 6 months on the Mexican border on Operation Lone Star, part of a special operation task force combating cartels, traffickers, human traffickers, drug smugglers. So there was humanitarian crisis number 2 in my life in 3 years, which was the Mexican border. Though some of the worst stuff I've ever seen in my life. On par with Afghanistan, on par with what was the next one, which was Ukraine. The day I got off orders where I was legally allowed to travel or I was not. So when you're on orders, you have to do what the Army says, right? And the Army said, this is what you're going to do. So for 6 months, I was on this assignment at the border. The day I got off those orders, I'm back to a civilian Tim Kennedy. So then I traveled to Ukraine. I worked Ukraine for a few months during that conflict and post-invasion, which was, again, horrible, like some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. Come back and I get this like momentary lull where I was like, I think like Israel, is this going to be okay? And then this happens, then October 7th happens. And it was just, in 3 years for this level of horror to happen it's indescribable.
it seems like it's ramping up.
It is.
So you're saying that the experience that you had at the border was as bad as anything?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, you're not going to give me, I'm just going to take a sip here. So we're in Afghanistan, right? Babies are stuck in concertina wire. Taliban is executing civilians in the street to try to prompt Americans to do a response, to try and elicit some escalation, right? They're really just flexing to show that they were in charge. So that's Afghanistan on the ground. Burnt babies, as I'm going out to try and find Americans or our allies that are out in the city of Kabul to bring them into HKIA. And you're stepping over like small burnt babies. Like, it's the worst thing ever. Fast forward 3 weeks. We're at the Del Rio River, and there are 400 immigrants trying to cross the river. They have babies up on their shoulders, and the coyotes, the traffickers, every single person that's in the river has paid the cartels to be escorted across the border. Well, concurrently, the cartel is about to smuggle 500 meters up the river 2 dudes with bundles of fentanyl on their back. So I'm dealing with this gigantic humanitarian problem of a few hundred people at night trying to cross a dark, cold, flowing water with babies on their shoulders. And what do the coyotes do? The moment that they start getting close to the shore, they just grab the kids down into the drink, down into the water. Babies are floating. Little children are screaming. Why would they do this? because I have to spend resources of my personnel to flood to try to save these immigrants from drowning in the river. And I have to throw a ton of resources and people at them to try and save them so they don't die in the river. At the exact same time, the resources that I have to use personnel-wise here, they're getting guys successfully onto the shore with bags full of fentanyl as they run into the inland, into the interior. And they know exactly what they're doing. They're making money by moving people while they're concurrently making money smuggling drugs and throwing humanitarian crises at us so that they can move drugs simultaneously. And that's hard for people that are trying to do good. How do you choose which problem to attack? We had a service member that dived into the water to try to save a baby, and he drowned. Took us a week to find his body. A Texas National Guardsman dove in there to try to find a baby that had got pushed off, and he drowned trying to save her.
Is it a matter of resources? Is there not enough resources being put into? Well, obviously, this whole thing reeks of. It's so terrible to say, but it seems like this is a concentrated effort, and not just from the cartel. It seems like this is something that's being allowed to happen.
The benefit of there's lots. I mean, that's a hard question.
Right.
Texas has a way different position than the federal government as to the immigration problem, and their approach are almost in conflict. So when you get to like the real bad actors with, sexual trafficking cartel members, drug smugglers, weapon smugglers, of course you're going to see federal assets being leveraged to attack those problem sets. But the large humanitarian problem, the federal government is going to have a way different approach compared to the Texas government. The Texas government is like, no, this is illegal immigration. We have lawful ports of entry. You have to legally come into the United States through a legal port of entry. And then once you are here, we will process you in accordance with what the Department of State says the immigration process is. Because there's a rule, and we're a country of laws, so you have to follow the law. Anything else is illegal. The other side of that coin is the federal approach, which is anybody that makes across the border, you are now here and we're going to process you, which is insanity.
Why do they do that? Do you think they're trying to bring in voters?
Yeah. It grows the government. It's more entitled people that you have to pay, more entitlement programs that you have to pay to support. Those people are immediately shipped into the interior. I find it comical, and I know people think it's not appropriate for the Texas government. They've been shipping immigrants to some of these sanctuary cities that they have said that they're sanctuary cities until they've actually received a lot of immigrants. And they're like, oh my God, we can't handle this number of immigrants.
Yeah.
And it's like 1% of what comes over the border every single day here in Texas that we have to deal with all the time. The Yankees, those north, they have no idea what it's like to be a border state. And the amount, just the tens and hundreds of thousands of people that are coming across every single day, it's criminal that they're allowing it.
And when did it start? When did it ramp up like this? This was never
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, Trump put some pretty powerful laws in place and empowered the federal immigration laws for us at the border to have lots of tools to, one, turn somebody away. If you're coming across and you're claiming asylum, well, you have to go back to your country of origin, or you have to go to the country that you're trying to cross from, and that is where you're going to have your asylum process be determined. You're not going to come in, and we're not going to allow you to go to San Diego and get to hang out in San Diego until your court date. Which is currently happening right now, right? You make it across. Where are you going? I'm going to San Diego. All right, show up for your immigration court date in a year and a half from now.
And everybody knows this, so that people are just coming across.
That's right,
en
just
masse.
flooding.
It's so wild to watch those videos of just enormous, miles-long lines of people.
Military-age men. It's so heartbreaking. and the men and women, Border Patrol, Department of Public Safety, the Texas National Guardsmen that are working the border, they are so incredible, selfless, hardworking, love America and also love people. They're putting their lives on the line every single day to try to protect these immigrants, but also try to protect the law and the rule of law. And that's a really hard thing to reconcile. Is what is the humane thing to do, and is that in alignment with what is the just thing to do? That's hard. But they're amazing.
And then once people are here and they cross over, there's not a real screening process in terms of like who's a criminal, what your history is in your country of origin.
Yeah, you want to get a weird Google thing. Google how many known people on the terror watch list have made it across. And it'll scare the crap out of you. So Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, we have these gigantic lists of people that are on terror watch lists, criminal watch lists, and the number of those that we have captured at the border obviously is just going to be a drop in a bucket of those that have made it across. And, it is in light of what just happened in Israel, where they flew paragliders over borders, over walls, and they crashed through walls, and then they were able to kill 1,400 people in one day. And then you look at the number, and that was 1,000 insurgents total. And then you look at the number of people that have been coming over the border for the past 3 years that we know are radicalized, that we know are on watch lists. It should scare the pants, just scare you to death. The position that we're at. We're going to have a real bad year.
God damn it.
Yeah. Department of Homeland Security and the FBI yesterday, they talked about a bunch of known terrorist cells that are currently not operating. They are operating, but they are looking for opportunities, targets of opportunity to conduct terrorist activities here in the United States. Department of State just released an entire worldwide warning to all Americans traveling abroad, saying that it is dangerous for any American to be traveling anywhere in the world right now with the amount of terrorist cells that have now been activated. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. So if you're in the STEPS program, I think it's Department of State, STEP, Smart Traveler something program, that you get notifications. If you travel abroad, you should enroll in the STEPS program. But what it happens is today you would have gotten an email saying if you're going to be traveling to every single country that you had enrolled in STEPS that you're going to be overseas in, you would have gotten an email from them warning you not to go there because it's dangerous. So if you were enrolled in 5 different countries for STEPS, you would have got 5 emails today being like, hey, bro, don't go there. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, worldwide caution. Due to increased tensions in various locations around the world, the potential for terrorist attacks, demonstrations, and violent actions against U.S. citizens and interests, the Department of State advises U.S. citizens overseas to exercise increased caution. U.S. citizens should stay alert in locations frequented by tourists, enroll in Smart Travel Enrollment Program to receive information and alerts to make it easier to locate you in an emergency overseas. Follow the Department of State on Facebook and Twitter, and visit travel.state.gov.
Yeah, this crisis intake form and the flights out of Ben Gurion, that is... So Save Our Allies, the NGO that I was in Afghanistan for, the NGO that I was in Ukraine for, and the NGO that I was just recently in Israel for, Department of State, they're an easy target to throw darts at sometimes, but they really do great for the American people. But there's always these gaps that, so fly out of, you're an American in Israel, right? You're a 75-year-old pastor that wants to go and walk where Jesus walked. Israel is just such a beautiful place where, there's 2.5 billion Christians in the world. There's 1.9 billion Muslims in the world. There's almost 20 million Jews in this world. And guess where their one place that they think to be the holies of holies are? That's right, in Israel, right? It is the place for the largest religions in the world to all celebrate. So you're a pastor and you want to go to the Jordan River because that's where Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. You are a Muslim and you want to go to the Dome. You want to the Dome on the Rock. You want to go to the mosque that they're calling the reason for attacking Israel was because they thought it was going to be destroyed, which it never will be. It's protected by Israel. Whatever your motivation was, you get there, you're an American, and then this attack happens. American cancels your flight. United cancels your flight. Every single airline cancels your flight, and the only airline left is the Israeli airline. You're wherever you are in Israel, maybe you're on the Jordan River, maybe you're up north in Haifa, maybe you're like way down south in Eilat because you wanted to see the border of Egypt and this, you're the Gulf of Aqaba. It's like the most beautiful water that connects to the Red Sea. And you're an American tourist. You don't have the wherewithal of knowing how to travel in the middle of a war. And now you're getting a thing from Department of State that says you have to go to Tel Aviv and connect with us and fill out this crisis intake form for us to be able to help you get out. From where you are as an American citizen to where you need to be to get out of this country where 1,400 people are being raped, murdered, burnt alive, tortured. There's people being kidnapped and hostages being taken. And like, you're just an American that's now stuck here and every single airline has canceled your flight, no matter how many times you've booked it. We had this guy had booked 5 new flights and every single one of those flights had been charged on his credit card. And so then his credit card is frozen because he's just booked 5 next day flights at, $3,000-$4,000 a piece. And, he's on heart medication, maybe he's on insulin, whatever the individual, we helped almost 400 people get out of Israel. But the Department of State, as amazing as there's these little gaps that somebody has to go and help them with that's comfortable moving in the middle of a war. And that's really where Save Our Allies comes in, is because we go and fill that gap. Like, how do I find this guy in this hotel that is too scared to leave, doesn't know how to get a bus, doesn't know how to get a taxi, doesn't know how to, his tourist information or his tourist guide is like, hey, bro, I'm out. I'm going to go down because my kibbutz just got murdered. I'm going to go help my family that, they're missing 3 of their family members. Of course, they're going to go and help. But now that guy is stuck, that his family's stuck, that pastor's stuck. So we had to go and find those people and move them to a place where they could get out of the country safely. And it was freaking hard. The volume of that is like wild.
Jesus.
We took this rad 2 pastors. They're from California, and we had a similar situation. They'd booked multiple flights. They had an old pastor with them. They didn't have the maneuverability of being able to pivot with whatever existing flights. Ultimately, we had to drive them from where they were to Haifa to put them on a private chartered airplane to fly them from Haifa to Cyprus, where they could then fly from there to Athens and get home. But like, we had to privately source an airplane to fly them out of a place, to get them to a place that they could fly out of, because all other aircraft had been grounded, so that 2 pastors could make it back to their churches in California. They're literally stuck. So, yeah, crazy.
How do you fucking manage your mind dealing with so many horrific and traumatic experiences over and over and over again, just over a few years?
That's what my dad just asked me. But he asked me like way more pointed. He's like, Are you okay? Are you okay, son?
Yeah.
Like,
I would be asking that too if I was your dad.
Do you remember Mr. Rogers? We're
Yes.
old.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. He was asked a real similar question, and it was during the civil rights protests where blacks are being beaten in the street, and hippies are being condemned as like the next plague and pestilence that society could ever see. And like, what would you do with all of this evil happening around us? And Mr. Rogers says, just look to the helpers. There's always people trying to help. And, I'm thinking about the ground team that I had with me over there. I can't even say their names because they're amazing people, but we had JP, RT, Primo, and the most brilliant from the expeditionary special operations backgrounds, but the most selfless, hardworking, they're giants of humans. Like I look at them just in awe of how capable they are and how selfless they are at the same time. Like these are the most lethal humans on the planet. And they could kill you 1,000 different ways, but they're putting their lives on the line to try to rescue a pastor that can't book a flight. Like Israel would do anything to have one of these guys go with them and advise them about how to get into this shit show that is Gaza, into the tunnels that is controlled by Hamas, and what are we going to do with Hezbollah at the northern border? Or how are we going to stop the Taliban that just got permission to cross through Iraq? What are we going to do with Al Qaeda that just bribed a whole bunch more people to fly them into every single neighboring country? But instead, they're just trying to rescue people. So to ask your question, when I'm down at the border, I just look to my left and my right, and I see a freaking private that's 3 o'clock in the morning. He's sitting there with night vision, and he's like, that kid just fell in the water. And motherfucker's off. He's off. He's running down into the darkness to jump in the water to try and save a kid. Like, if you cannot find inspiration from that, and if you cannot find something that's going to nurture and feed your soul and inspire you to do something good for the people around you, and look at the guys that I had with me in Israel, like I can't even, the group of people that I had with me in Ukraine, like I'm just astounded by these, and you know a whole bunch of them too, that are just amazing people. I've been so blessed to have, a short but successful fighting career, a successful military career that then went into a period of like successful business. And now I'm in a position where like, man, I really want to do good. And there's all these things that I know or people are really hurting in, or they can't do. And I have experience and a background and connections that I'm able to solve these problems. I did so much evil and I dealt so much death. And if I didn't try to do good now, like I think I would really have a problem. But I'm good because I'm doing good. There's something about that, doing good for other people. Like when you're hurting, I don't think there's anything more important that you could do than do something for somebody else. And that just empowers you and it gives you purpose. And if I'm ever going to think about, should I get up and work out today? Well, I can think about August 24th, 2021, when I had 2 kids in my arms and a woman behind me, and we're having to run through Kabul to try to make it to Ichkaya while we're being chased by the Taliban. Cool. I want to be in good shape, bro.
Yeah.
Find people doing good. As Mr. Rogers said, look to the people that are helping. And man, I'm good.
Just keep your eyes on the good.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you're able to manage your mind through all this, because I know a lot of lesser men would be destroyed by one of these experiences. And for you to have 4 of them concurrent over 3 years.
That is a lot.
It's a lot to handle.
I would really like maybe in the next election cycle us to look at the past 3 years and maybe I'm not ready for another 4 years of this. I don't think our organization could take it. I think the Rolodex of people that want to do good, I can only ask somebody to go into a war-torn country to try to save Americans so many times.
Well, unfortunately, we've also demonized first responders and people that are in the military, and demonized people that are police officers and border officers, and this short-sighted, ridiculous approach for political purposes is just so fucking infuriating. And it's so weird that more people don't understand that and more people don't see it that way.
Yeah. The propaganda machine is a powerful thing right now. And I don't know how to fight it. They have successfully demonized law enforcement. Border Patrol, they take a photo of a guy riding on a horse, and a horse is the best thing you can possibly have on the border. If you've been to the Mexican border, it is like, it's magic. I mean, do you hunt off horseback ever?
No.
Oh, dude, it's the best. And even like Southwest Texas, if you're going elk hunting, or like you're going to go bear hunting, you're going to go cat hunting, and you think you're going to get up, through in and around Big Bend on anything but a horse, you're crazy. Like, you better be on a horse. There's one photo of a guy with his reins in his hand.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They're like, this Border Patrol guy is whipping. That's not what's happening. He was using his horse to block people, to prevent them from putting their lives in danger by getting into this flowing river. And that's what he was doing. And if they make it into the interior, like the number of people that die from exposure once they make it across into the United States, but then they try to cross, like let's say they came through Big Bend. Do you know how big that place is?
It's fucking crazy huge. Yeah.
You know, we're hunting in and around there, and I'll come across a couple of immigrants, and they are, I mean, we find dead bodies all the time on ranches of immigrants that just die from exposure.
A friend of mine found one. He has a ranch in South Texas. He
all
found
the
one
time.
really recently.
Yeah. And these men and women on the border are trying to protect them. You know, similarly in the propaganda vein, this pro-Hamas, it's, you know, we were texting before we came on here, like how fast things pivot. The rational understanding of a problem and how perverted it is from truth. Don't know how to fight this. This is a unique problem.
It's very unique and it's very strange. It's very strange to see massive protests on the streets that are yelling out in support of the people that did that on October 7th. And there was a professor recently that said he was elated when that happened.
Yeah.
And he was just suspended, which is crazy that it's only that. But the fact that there's people that are so fucking detached from reality, and they have this very strange leftist Marxist philosophy that is so untenable with the reality of the world, and yet they're teaching kids this, and then they're talking about this openly in public forums, openly in social media, openly in protests. It's fucking strange. It's so strange that people don't understand. It's so dangerous. And for young people that admire those people or that are being taught by those people and don't know any better when that person's in a position of power and influence because they're discussing these things in classrooms or discussing these things on social media, I just don't understand it. I'm so confused. I never thought things would deteriorate this rapidly.
I'm disappointed, but I'm not confused when you know the powers and the money that is being spent to try to destabilize America. When you look at our enemies, when you're looking at China, when you're looking at Russia, when you're looking at Iran, and the hundreds of millions of dollars they're spending in misinformation and disinformation, where they are perpetuating things that we 100% know to be not true, not factual, but they are very effectively. I mean, it's unnerving. Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister for Hitler, you know, he had a playbook about how to spin truth and how to manipulate masses. You know, how could you take what is a great, cool culture like the Germans were post-World War I, as they're trying to find their identity and they're trying to bounce back from a horrific war, and then, you know, by the mid-30s and late 30s, you know, they're positioning to throw Jews into ghettos and then ultimately gas 6 million of them. How can that happen so fast? And you very quickly realize that it was an effective propaganda misinformation campaign where they were able to dehumanize and segregate certain aspects or ideas and then attach a name to those things and a face to those things and a people to those things. You know, we saw it here during COVID, the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And it happened fast. It happened in months. And the same way that police were demonized during the defund law enforcement and BLM movement. Now we know to be a complete hoax, a bunch of liars that manipulated truth and data and what really happened. And are there injustices? Absolutely. Are we a perfect nation? Totally not. Is law enforcement perfect? No, for sure. But by and large, the vast majority do want to do good. Like it says, protect and serve, and that's what they raise their hand to do. But they're being destroyed by this misinformation campaign. And Russia and China want it. You know, they want us to be fighting each other. They want pro-Palestinian protests. They want pro-Hamas protests. They want from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That is a call for genocide. They're calling for, so the river, the Jordan River, which is on the east side of all of Israel, the sea, the Mediterranean. In between those two things is where Israel lies, 7.4 million Jews. They want that to not exist. They want no Jews to be there. So every time that you hear from the river to the sea, it is a call for genocide or an expulsion of all Jews out of Israel. And that is the call of Hamas. And guess who's paying for that thing to be seen on Cornell and in Harvard and in that's right, Russia and China. They're being manipulated by a bunch of our enemies as they're trying to destabilize us in a region and here in the United States.
And it's a vulnerability that we have because of our freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, but man, I love freedom.
I love it.
I do.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
That's why I moved here.
I love the way that freedom would work was that there was an educated, empowered citizen that was individually responsible for themselves and their family. And they were in a position of authority over the government. That's how that document worked, our beautiful Bill of Rights and the Constitution. It was because of the power of the people. And over the past 50, 60 years, our people have become fat, gelatinous, complacent, uneducated, subscribe to propaganda, radicals, aligned with agendas that are not pro-America. And in the course of this time, it makes that document have no teeth, right? There's nothing behind it because the government used to be scared of the people because the people, when, we decided to throw some tea in a harbor and the shot heard around the world, we went after the people that were attacking us and that were controlling us, and we killed them and we pushed them off this land. And then we wrote these founding documents that said the individual is going to maintain the power. The people are going to have the power. But the only way that works is if the people have power. And we've let that go. Bit by bit, diet by diet, day by day, lack of exercising of our God-given rights. We are now just soft. It's one of the reasons when I was kicking around with you, like, hey, do we really want to talk about this? This is tough. Like I have 25 pages of notes here about the Middle East conflict. But ultimately, I'm scared that can happen here because we are so vulnerable right now as people. And it's the reason that Sheepdog Response exists. My company is to train the American individual to take their own security, to preserve and protect human life and be able to provide for the family. That's the mission statement. But right now, I don't know what percentage of Americans are capable of doing that. Like,
it's a very small number.
Very small.
Yeah, frighteningly small. And that is being discussed as if somehow or another that small number is a strength, that we are in somehow or another a more kind and a more equitable nation because people are so soft, because people are so... I don't know how you have those two. How do you have such freedom that allows people to have these protests, that allows people to have these differing perspectives and to speak about it openly and publicly, but yet still maintain the strength of the union when you have all of these external factors, all of these different countries and different organizations that are working to try to use propaganda and use money to destroy us.
Yeah.
Because that's really what's happening. And that's like, that used to be like, if you said there's people out there that are trying to destroy America, oh, you're some crazy right-wing fucking alt-right. But God damn it, how much information do you have to see? How much truth do you have to see that you cannot deny?
Yeah.
That's in front
Russian
of your face?
interference into the election.
Yeah.
Bold-faced lie. They weren't interfering. They're perpetuating that they were interfering, but they weren't interfering. That Trump was being influenced by...
But that he was a Russian agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guess who was pushing that story? The Russians and China, because it destabilized our election process.
Right.
So your question is, how do you reconcile having such freedoms where somebody can go and say something so detestable, like praising a group of people that went and raped and murdered 1,400 people that currently have 240 hostages. Like that's what Hamas has. There's 30 to 40,000 Hamas operatives within Gaza. They have a ton of like how can somebody have so much freedom to say that? Well, it's if the people are prepared to be able to protect and preserve and provide. Then, if you're in a position of authority, sovereignty, it's the next step past freedom. Sovereignty is what I want for me. It's what I want for every American. It's that they are in control of themselves. An external force comes and says, Tim, I want you to take this experimental thing and give it to your child and inject it into them, please. I say no. No, I don't need whatever it is you're about to withhold from me because I don't do this thing. I don't need because I can do it myself. That's sovereignty, right? I don't need you to come and try and protect my family because I can protect my family. Like, come and try and mess with them because like my family is unattainable to anybody else. They're completely protected. Education. The reason I started these schools is because I do not want anyone else to have influence over the way that my children are going to learn how to be critical thinkers. I want them to be educated. I want them to be powerful. I want them to be cognitive in every single debatable subject, to have the Socratic mind where they can sit and debate somebody like you with immense knowledge on all these variety of topics. But that, man, they're fierce. That's sovereignty. We have for so long just given away every little bit of it, whether it was post 9/11 or during COVID or after the next active shooter. Like in light of what just happened in Maine, they're going to be coming after, they're going to be looking for more laws to try and control more of the Second Amendment and limit the freedoms that we have. So we know that, but we have to maintain this essence that is being American, which is the sovereignty, the individual responsibility that I am in charge of me.
And what's infuriating to me about these mass shootings, and Matt Walsh did a piece about this recently, where he discussed the prevalence of psychoactive drugs, the prevalence of psychiatric medications amongst school shooters, amongst mass shooters, that it is fucking off the charts.
Yeah.
And they try to hide that. They try to hide that data by using gang violence as mass shootings.
Yep.
And they use like, well, there's no data to support that all that is like, no. That's not true at all. There's a giant difference between gang violence mass shootings, which occur all the time, which are also is something that no one's trying to fix, and then the actual people that strap themselves up and go into places where people are unarmed and just slaughter people.
Yeah.
Almost all of them are on something. They're almost all of them. They're on SSRIs. Almost all of them are on some sort of anti-anxiety medication. Almost all of them are on something. And that we don't address that. It's not even talked about. That it's like fucking Voldemort.
Not talked about. Voldemort, yeah.
Whatever it is. You're not supposed to say the name. I mean, it's like, it's very strange that this is never discussed on television.
And you said you can't research it. When you say it's buried, that data, if you were like, how many active shooters were on a antidepressant, anything, that all of that data is buried with, well, then it pops up, well, in Chicago, in Southern California,
right.
It's buried in truth. So trying to find the real data of these active shooters in schools, like this guy that in Maine, known mental health problems.
Yes.
And he actually tried to buy a suppressor and failed trying to buy the suppressor because he self-elected. He told them that he had just recently got out of a mental institution. So like, kudos to them. I'm part of this group called Double Check that's trying to figure out ways to identify outliers like this, where people have information. They wrote their manifesto of like, hey, I'm going to go murder a bunch of people. I'm going to go to this black church and kill everybody. A lot of times that information is available, and as I love the Second Amendment, every single person should be able to have a tank and a machine gun, in my opinion. But when somebody is dealing with mental health problems, they are on a bunch of drugs, they're actively trying to hurt people, like maybe there's a restraining order, they're a multi-time felon, should that guy be able to go in and buy? Well, clearly, that guy right there was stopped from getting a tool to maybe even hurt more people by just, and as a small business owner, it is my choice who I'm going to sell to and who I'm going to choose to sell a product to. And if that product is a thing like ultimate, the individual responsibility as an entrepreneur and a small business owner is like, it is my choice who sell this to. And that guy comes in and he says that he's on drugs and he just got out of a mental health hospital. Like, man, you could go buy your suppressor somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like that guy in Maine just went through it. So Double Check is trying to infuse themselves in a really helpful way to protect people like me that own a gun store, where if that guy walks into my door, I can have real data to point to him. So like, boop, I do a little search, it pops up as like, hey, hey man, you just wrote that you want to go shoot up a school. Can we talk about that before I sell you a gun? You know?
Yeah.
You said that you hate black people, and that you think that they all should die. Or like that guy in Harvard Square yesterday that was walking around saying that every Jew should have their neck slit. There should be no Jew businesses. This is like in Harvard Square. Like if that guy walked into my gun store, I'm going to go to double check and be like, man, so you said some pretty outrageous things yesterday. I think you need help. Let's go for a run and let's go get you some real help.
What help do they even get? I mean, and also, like, how much help do they get in getting off of that shit? And is there a way to get off of that shit? I mean, if you are legitimately mentally ill and you're on a host of psychiatric medications, like, what motivation do they have to even take you off of that shit?
I'm not a doctor. They don't have motivation because they don't make money when you're not taking drugs.
It's fucking terrifying.
But you also know the answer to this. So in all of the things I've experienced in the past 3 years, like post-traumatic stress, any single one of those single days over the course of months upon months would be enough for me to be like, dude, I'm out of here, right? Instead, definitely not on any drugs. Exercise every single day, cold plunge, hang out with my friends, do grappling, contribute in a meaningful way back to society. I have an amazing relationship with my beautiful wife. I have incredible children that I'm so proud of. I'm now like playing hockey with my son as a 45-year-old dude that just went to a yard sale to buy all the hockey stuff so I can get out there and try to dunk on my 8-year-old who skates around me, making me look like an idiot. I also got all my lacrosse stuff. I got tap shoes so I can start doing tap dancing with my 4-year-old. You know, like these are the things that healthy people do.
Yeah.
Sitting on the couch, eating a bunch of shit, not going outside, not having any relationships, not having any community, not finding ways to give back to their community. Of course you're broken. So how do you get off the drugs? You start doing tiny little bits, 1% improvement every single day. And ultimately, like the sun is brighter. Your wife is more beautiful. Your kids are just a little bit more rad, you know, and you're able to go do more good for more people.
But people don't have this guidance, and that's what's crazy. That this truth that you're speaking is not common. This is not something that people discuss. And if you talk to a doctor, this is not something they recommend. What they're trying to do is let's find the right medication for you, Tim.
Yeah.
Let's alter your stuff.
I just got chastised by my doctor. I'm, 45, so I was going to go with the is my gut and stuff healthy thing that you do at this age. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we haven't seen you in 7 years. I'm like, I haven't been sick in 7 years. Yeah. Last time I was here, I partially tore my toe off, and I needed you to like
stitch it back up.
Yeah, put my toe back on. So like, what do I need you for? And they're like, well, right. you need us now because you have to have a letter for you to be able to go get this procedure. And I was like, well, I just don't want to get gut and like butthole cancer. So I'd really like to go do these things,
right?
But I have to come in and see you for you to like write a thing for me to go see these other people. And okay, I got it. Stupid.
Well, they think they're doing the right thing because this is what their mandate is. And this is what their normal regimen is when they discuss things with people. Like, you should be seeing us all the time, Tim.
No.
Yeah, I don't get it. If you're healthy,
be healthy.
And be healthy. Be actually healthy. Like, work at it.
Yeah. That discipline, it seems so sad. And I pity the easy solution person where like I can take a pill and I'll feel better, right. Or I can take a pill and I'll be less fat, or like I'll be sold on this idea that this media company is selling me that if I do this thing, I'm gonna sleep better, or like my dick's gonna work better with this thing.
I'll be happier.
Yeah, like the truth is that, man, you got to work.
Yes, you got to work. You
got to get up early. Yeah. You have to have calloused hands. Man, I love my wife, and I love being able to have an amazing relationship with her, and that would not be possible if I didn't work at it. I like being a freak physical thing in my middle 40s. That would not be possible if I didn't work at it.
Right.
I like being a successful business person. that would not be possible. And I mean like work, not like, oh man, I shot a selfie and like punched it in for the day, like
Actual work.
yeah, like get up earlier than me.
Most people don't even have a frame of reference. There's so many people out there that don't know anybody who actually works. Like works at it the way you do, or the way many people do that we know.
The flying back from Israel, every one of those people in the kibbutzes all around Gaza, and we were up and down them, like they're no fat on their faces, like striations on their shoulders. Like these are just cops or now reserve recently activated people. Going in Tel Aviv, I'm not joking. The entire time I was there, I saw 2 fat people the whole entire time. And I was like, I had to, I was compelled. I was like, hey, are you guys low? And they turn around and they're both American.
Of course.
Both instances of like the only fat people. And then I take a flight from Tel Aviv directly into New York. I land in New York and I'm heading towards immigration and passport control. And I'm just like inundated with the like overweight, dangerously obese Americans. And I went, the stark contrast of a place that has been trying to fight for their existence since May of 1948, when every single neighboring country invaded them and tried to kill them, to like the 6-Day War, to then Yom Kippur War, and then the first Intifada, to the second Intifada, and now what just happened on October 7th, where they're just like under this stress of being capable and individually responsible for their safety. Clearly they failed on October 7th. To then coming into New York, and I was like, bro.
We are a mess.
We are a mess.
Yeah, we're a mess, and our supermarkets are filled with poison. It's wild. It's like there's something like 40% of the American diet is processed foods.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. But like everything from every angle is weakening us. Yeah. Everything.
I want everybody to get chickens.
I have chickens.
Of course you do. Chickens are a gateway to freedom.
They're a great way to free food.
Yeah, that they are.
You let them roam around. They make you eggs.
Just eat bugs.
Yeah.
They scratch on the ground.
I always tell people that are vegans too, get chickens. It's literally karma-free food.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat eggs because you don't believe in factory farming. Fantastic. Do you have enough room to have chickens? Well, then you'll get real protein, animal protein that's karma-free. They lay those eggs every day. They're never going to become a chick.
And they're so happy to be living with you.
Yeah.
My 4-year-old like walks around with 2 chickens, half the day, and she's like sitting there in her 4-wheeler, and there's a chicken sitting next to her, like the happiest. Like my cat's cruising around. My cats love the chickens too, because if you have chickens, there's a good chance you're gonna have mice, and if you have mice, then you're gonna have a really happy cat. And like I have Belgian Malinois, and she comes in and she just like sits there like she's the king of the roost, and then one of the chickens comes over and reminds her that she's nothing, that the chickens are actually in charge of the yard. But the amount of eggs that they come, but when you get that first time that you crack an egg from one of your chickens and you're like, that looks different. And then you eat it and you're like, dude, that tastes different.
A lot different.
Like way different.
Way different.
It's like that dark, deep
orange,
like not yellow, not pale, like orange.
Right.
And it's like you can taste the nutrient, micronutrient riches of it. And then you're like, well, if that is that different, how much different is all of the other things that I eat?
Right.
And you start going down this wild journey, this rabbit trail of freedom.
And how much different am I?
Yeah.
When you look at the difference between grain-fed fatty beef and an elk steak, you're like, okay, look at the difference in the meat. Yeah. Look at the difference in the quality of the meat, the dark, rich, nutrient-dense, protein-rich meat. Like, what's the difference? Well, they're not eating any bullshit.
No.
They're eating literally what they've eaten for hundreds of thousands of years.
And they have to work every day to find more of it.
Yeah.
And the unhealthy bits, and this is a cruel thing about nature, is the unhealthy animal dies.
Yes.
And the existing animals are the ones that we ultimately get to go and find. And we are very careful about which ones we're killing and what season we're killing them in, to make sure that we are encouraging the same healthy herd. We get this most delicious, surviving, fantastic, nutrient-dense meat you can find on the planet.
Yeah.
And we have this provider. We launched a learn to hunt school. We teach you how to land navigate. We teach you the fundamentals of marksmanship. We teach you all basic good laws around hunting, how to put in out of state for a lottery for.
This is a part of your school system?
We teach it
Or is
at
it a
our school,
different thing?
but at Sheepdog Response.
Okay.
It's called the provider course at Sheepdog Response. We also teach it to the kids. So like the mentorship program at Apogee, those guys get to come to provider courses. They learn how to skin an animal. They learn how to follow a blood trail. They learn how to field dress an animal. They learn the final culminating exercise. You'll love this. So after 2 days of just like inundated information, like here's the healthy and natural way to kill an animal. This is shot placement. This is, you have to know how to shoot first. So we teach fundamentals of marksmanship, non-standard shooting positions, like how many times you get to lay down in the prone off bipods and shoot something. Not often in hunting. Like, can I shoot off poles? Can I shoot off a tree? Kneeling, standing offhand. If I get a designated zone like in Arizona or New Mexico, can I navigate from where I can park to where I have to go hunt without illegally trespassing on anybody's property? Like the barrier between I want to hunt and I can hunt is hard for some people.
Yes.
And as we're sitting here talking about like how amazing it is to hunt, and it is the most amazing thing that I want everybody to do, that barrier of entry seems hard for some people.
It's very steep.
But it shouldn't be.
Right.
And that's the idea. Like I want this for everybody. And the final day, we give you your lot. We give you your animal. You have to navigate to that place. You then have to PID, like positively identify the animal that you're supposed to shoot, and then you go to take a shot off it. Once you take your shot off of it, we photograph how you're going to take that shot. Standing, kneeling, sticks. We measure the distance. We lays you're at 210 meters, and then we go duplicate that on an actual shooting range on the same target. And it's so fun to see like the full buck fever of somebody freaking out when they don't even have a round in the chamber. They're just looking at a 3D target out at Reveille Peak Ranch and burn it. It is such a joy to introduce. Every class we have 40 people, and every class is sold out. And the end result at the end of 3 days are like these people that are just like. They feel like they're going to explode with this excitement about what it means because they now know that they can go and hunt.
Do you have a mind management program to deal with the moment of actually shooting?
Yeah.
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 Are you familiar with Joel Turner's work, the Shot IQ system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Changed everything for me and so many other people, including like world-class archers and people that have been hunting for decades that have dealt with target panic and don't understand what's actually going on between open loop and closed loop systems, and that you can actually manage that with discipline and actually having a shot routine that you must go through every time you execute a shot. Changes everything.
I mean, hold on a second, Joe. Are you telling me that discipline, process, and repetition solve a problem?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think so.
Mind blown.
I mean, that's for me.
Yeah,
I don't wanna speak
it does for everybody. Like,
Yeah.
what is the military's approach to literally every single
Everything.
thing?
Right.
That.
Right.
Like, what is your approach to not being fat? It's that.
Right.
What is your approach to like trying to build a real critical thinker that is going to move into society as a contributing member of society? It is that.
And also understanding the factors that are in play. Instead of just being like a prisoner of the moment and being captive by your emotions and, these human systems that have existed forever, like having an understanding of what's going on. Like, why am I freaking out?
Yeah.
What is there anything that I can do? How do I learn how to control my breathing? How do I learn how to mitigate stress? How do I learn how to manage my mind in these critical moments?
Yeah. It's hunting is one of the very few things that still sparks that feeling of like elation and excitement and nervousness, but I still fall back to, cool, I've disciplined, I've done the work. I have a process that I'm now executing, and I've put in the work for me to be able to be successful here. And then it's like success. And that same discipline, process, hard work approach to people externally will look at, save our allies in the middle of peak combat in a completely non-permissive environment, and they're like, what the hell are you what are you guys doing? And it's an incredible group of disciplined people that have a process that has been perfected over now 20 years at the global war on terror, and they are doing the work that that needs to be done. But those three things are still prevalent and evident
in everything. In everything difficult in all of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's but how do you get someone to subscribe to that?
I think they have to hear about it first, and that's one of the reasons why I think conversations like this are so important. It's because in everyday life, if you're working in an office, if you're dealing with regular people, you're not going to encounter this. You're not going to encounter these conversations. And there's going to be moments that people have where they do panic and freak out and don't understand why. How come I can't keep my shit together when I'm nervous? How come I can't keep my shit together in these critical moments that require me to stay calm and make good choices? What is wrong with me? Am I just a bitch? Like, what is it? No, you just have an undisciplined mind. You have an untrained mind.
Yeah, you haven't got the reps in.
You haven't got the reps in. Everyone needs the reps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as worried as I am about the future, at Apogee and at Sheepdog Response and at Save Our Allies and at the First Responders Action Group. Like, I'm in all of these different groups where I see these young men and women that are on this train, and I know I'm not in a cross section of the United States right now that is really struggling with all of the problems of mental health and obesity and diet, but in this little group that I'm around often, I'm just so encouraged by the work and the discipline and the subscription to the process. Like last night in my jiu-jitsu school, I had 60 kids on our mat at one time, and I said, "Hey parents, everybody come into the classroom really fast. We're going to have a Q&A session about competition and what this next season looks like." Every parent stood up, walked in there. They had questions. Like, they didn't even know, but they didn't know that we're going to be doing a Q&A. They had pre-prepared questions that they were looking for an opportunity to ask the staff about, okay, how is coaching going to be at the next tournament? And I was just like, I love you people, and like the parents to the Apogee families, because we take a totally different approach. We're a whole family approach to education. Like, if you subscribe to this idea that you can take your kid and you can drop them off at a place and you're going to get this amazing thing back, that you don't have any control about what they're being taught, you are just an idiot and you're a crazy person. Like, you send your people to Caesar, you send your people to Rome, and you don't think you're going to get a Roman back? Like, that's what's going to happen.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Our approach is there's a whole family inclusion here. It is not just our responsibility to train and to educate your children. It is our responsibility. So you are going to work out. You're going to keep a journal of your diet. Here is your prescribed reading list. Here are the books that your kids are going to be reading that you're also going to be reading with them. Like, if your kid is reading it, then you better be reading it too. You'd be very appalled at some of the books that are assigned to children in public school to read. And I think if a parent actually picked this book up and it's like, and then Johnny took his penis and he brought it and it was erect for the first time next to his friend. You're like, what? This is for a fourth grader?
Right.
So this whole family approach this truly Socratic, this is not new. This has been around for a long time. And I'm so encouraged to see the activation, the discipline, the process, and the hard work from the youngest kindergartner all the way up to like the 60-year-old parent that's like doing the work.
It's so bizarre to me that a rejection of teaching like overt sexuality to young kids is somehow or another dismissed as anti-gay or anti-LGBTQ. It's so strange because you could never imagine heterosexual sex being discussed to 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. Like, this is how a man, chooses to have, sexual relationships with women, and this is how a woman chooses to have sexual relationships with men. No, that's never discussed.
That's wildly inappropriate.
Wildly inappropriate. But somehow or another, it's okay if you're discussing gay sex.
Yeah.
Like, it's very strange.
It's not strange. It's wrong. It's dangerous. It's grooming behavior. If you're trying to broach any sexual topic with a child that is not of age to have sex, that is grooming. That is the definition of grooming.
Right, and grooming itself, that term is dismissed as anti-LGBTQ and whatever.
Which
the
is
fuck.
wild. Like,
Wild.
I love gay people. I do not. This is the idea about being American,
As do
right?
I.
Like, don't care,
Yes.
bro. Do anything that you want. You talk to my 8-year-old about anything sexual, hetero, homo, anything. It's wildly inappropriate. He's 8.
Yes. Right.
You know?
Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one reason, and it is not for the benefit of
It's
the 8-year-old.
indoctrination.
That's right.
Yeah. And
So-
to say that somehow or another is homophobic, which is so insane. Like, how did that become reality? That we're dealing with this? Because this was not the case a decade ago, 2 decades ago. This is very recent in terms of modern society in this country.
I don't know.
It's fucking crazy. It's crazy. And it also, to me, it's so confusing that other people don't recognize that. And that people are they're so scared of being labeled as homophobic or being labeled as transphobic or anti-LGBTQ that they allow these things to take place under the guise of we're being more inclusive.
Yeah. It does hurt to be called, a bigot, to like, you're racist or you're anti-LGBTQ. Like, I don't want those things said about me, and I know that they're completely wrong. But they're going to lob that unfounded accusation at me because I'm going to stand on a principle of protecting my children. And would I rather take, there's a great photo of a dad standing over his children, and on his back, he has like all of these darts. And the cartoon was, and the darts were named, it was Disney propaganda, it was LGBTQ indoctrination, it's racial discrimination, it was 69 Project. It was like every single thing that they're attacked with just relentlessly every single day, and the dad's just sitting there taking it. And that is our job, is to take it. So you can call me any names that you want, but first and foremost, my position is to protect my children and to raise somebody that will be a contributing member of society. My partner, Matt Boudreau at Apogee, he was in public education. Like that was his origin. That was his start. The genesis of his journey where we collided was he had went and started the 2 largest Socratic schools in the United States, like hundreds and hundreds of students going to learn just the Socratic approach. And he thought that there was more that needed to be done on the full family approach, where the dad and the mom and the brothers and the sisters, everybody's on the same journey to become the best versions of themselves. So Matt and I collide with both of us working at the exact same thing, with the same ideas, with the same approaches, with the same love for America. And like the end result is dads and moms becoming those things where they will be the stopgap between all of this hate and all of these dangerous ideas. And if you're not doing that, like if parenting's not hard, maybe you're not a good parent, because parenting is hard.
It's complicated.
It is.
Yeah,
And
it's
like
very
it should,
complicated.
my wife and I last night sat there for an hour and broke down like next school year books that we're reading, like for an hour on a Tuesday night. We're just sitting there like hammering through. Like, were there a lot of other things I'd rather be doing for an hour with my wife? Sure. But highs and lows on Sunday, my son had lacrosse practice. It was cold. It was rainy. And his whole entire team, 3rd graders, out there shivering and and showing grit. And I was like, my heart was exploding with pride. And I never said you had to stay out there. I was like, hey, practices today. We get there. The coach was in shorts, and he was his fingers were white. His cheeks were like bright red from the cold, but he stood there and he took it and he showed grit. And then all of these 3rd graders followed in suit. And I was just like heart exploding with pride as my son demonstrated like this will follow through with this thing that I've committed to do. And it hurt me to watch my son be cold. And it hurt me. And this is why parenting's hard. And if it doesn't, and if I didn't care, I don't think there's any greater insult than indifference. And to be indifferent to your kid is just like the worst thing you could be as a human.
Yeah, it's so selfish. It's a crazy way of thinking. But so many people are just so occupied with their own life, and they're so busy that they just don't have the time to have conversations with their kid or even think about it. They're like, they're going to school. That's school's job.
Anyone busier than you or me?
Elon.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe not.
I don't know. We're pretty busy.
But
I think it's a part of life. It's also very rewarding. I mean, to see your kids like getting after it, it's very rewarding. My youngest has become a real fitness freak. She's a nut. She's got a Fitbit now. She's 13. And she's a savage. She likes to tell me, like, did 28,000 steps today. She gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning and hits the gym before she goes to school. And then, like, she had a volleyball game. Yeah, 13.
Sick.
She had a volleyball game. She got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, ran for 2 miles, then went to the volleyball game, did the volleyball game. They're playing in this tournament. They play these 3 games, comes back home, hits the gym again. So she's getting 3 workouts in a day. And she's showing me her results and all this thing. And then, we're obviously giving her positive feedback because of it. But now she's like super fired up.
Yeah.
And that you see the difference in her body, like her abs are showing, and her body feels like she's like a fucking little panther.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And
it's so rewarding.
Not to be, and I don't mean to disparage other families that haven't made it there yet or haven't subscribed to these ideas of discipline and regiment. But our kids, compared to my son, my daughters, they're just so much better than everybody else. I don't mean to sound terrible, but they do the work.
I also think it's a lead by example thing. Children, you can teach them things, but they learn a lot from just watching you. They'll learn a lot. They'll learn a lot when they learn what the standards are.
Yeah.
Like when you see someone who's happy and fulfilled and also successful, and you're like, what is that person doing? Like, that person's my mom. What is my mom doing? Oh, my mom's a fucking animal. Like, look at her. Jesus, I want to be like her. Like, and that's how kids learn. They learn from that. They learn from seeing things, too. They don't just learn from the things you tell them. They learn from watching you, watching you live your own life. And if you're a slob and you come home and just fucking eating sub sandwiches and just drinking whiskey all night and just falling asleep watching sports, like, you kids are like, look at this fucking aimless existence. Like, this is stupid. Like, God, life is meaningless.
Yeah, give them purpose.
Right.
We're such a society void of purpose. Mike Glover wrote a great book, Prepared, and in that, one of the big takeaways was, like, it doesn't have to be your purpose, but one of the reasons me as an American, me as a protector, me as a father, me as a husband, it is my job and my responsibility to be prepared to protect my family. And as your children learn via osmosis, like by example, the things that you do, I have to elbow my son out of a seat so I can sit facing the door. I was like, my man, you knew where to sit, but move over. You go sit by your mom right now, And, he sees the outliers.
Right.
And Mike would call it a bump in the pattern. Like I call them outliers, where something is off, where I sit down in a place. I'm like, that person doesn't belong here.
Right. What's going on here?
Yeah. I'm going to spend a little bit of time and a little cognitive of my ever struggling brain to pay attention with what person is doing over here, because it's my responsibility. And Americans better figure this out pretty fast, because we are going to have a rough year. We are woefully unprepared and disillusioned about what the next 13 months are going to look like.
Do you think that's going to wake people up? Do you think, I do not want to say that we need something to happen, but one of the things that did happen post 9/11, I remember this overwhelming feeling of patriotism that was prevalent through the entire country. I would drive to work and I'd see American flags on in Los Angeles, which is one of the most ridiculously out of touch places on earth. And everyone had American flags hanging from their car. It was overwhelming. There was this feeling like we are in this together, and that there are forces of evil out there in the world. And now we understand, and now we're united.
I hope that we don't need that catalyst.
I hope so too.
I really do. But Israel is one of the most secure nations in the world. They're secure, which is impressive from them fighting for their existence the day that they became a country, to the 6-Day War where every single one of their neighboring countries invaded them, to the Yom Kippur War where, again, led by Egypt, every single one of their neighboring countries invaded them, to what just happened where they have one of the most complex security and military and intelligent networks on the planet. And Hamas killed almost Pearl Harbor level numbers, almost 9/11 level numbers, just in an indescribably barbaric way. Like this wasn't people dying in buildings or getting shot from airplanes. This was like I mean,
a music festival. Yeah,
that babies.
Yeah.
People are saying it was propaganda. What happened? It was not. These things really happened on the ground, and anybody that denies it is
who's saying it's propaganda.
If you go to one of these pro-Hamas protests right now, like show me a picture of a baby that got their head decapitated. That didn't really happen. Oh, you really 80 because IDF said that 80% of all of the victims within the kibbutzes were tortured before they were murdered. 80% of all of the victims. I know firsthand, saw firsthand, was shown and have, which I will never show, the pictures of these things really happening. And if it could happen in the most secure nation that has been invaded by every single one of their neighbors multiple times in history, but we here in America think that the 350 million of us are somehow safe, that the government is somehow going to protect us, that our local police department, like if you picked up the phone right now and you called for help, 911, how long would it take for somebody to come here and try and help and save you?
Especially with the defund the police.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, people are figuring that out in Minneapolis.
Well, they're figuring it out here.
Yeah. Yeah, they're figuring it out here too.
And you have a ton of friends that are in law enforcement in this area. The murder detectives, counter gang task forces are pulled off of their murder investigations to work the street because they don't have enough police officers. I've mentioned the recruiting crisis. If we are struggling to meet the demand of basic soldiers, the available population of combat arms that special operations can pick from, that shrinks, right? And then that pool being smaller. So ultimately, by the time you get to the guys that really do the work on the ground, there's nobody left to pick from. And we're not just strategically in maybe the most vulnerable position in a really long time, but nationally here in the United States, I think that we are more vulnerable than we have ever been. There's nobody coming to save you. There's nobody that's going to come, that's going to pick up the phone and be like, yeah, I'll be there in 3 minutes. They're not coming. It took 6 to 8 hours for any of the military or police to make it to any of those villages that were immediately adjacent from Gaza to come and try and fight Hamas back. They had 6 hours to do whatever they want to all the women, the children, and the Holocaust survivors that were still there. Like these were people that survived Holocaust camps, concentration camps of World War II, still alive, 102 years old. And they're like, Hamas is like, we knew that you were here. We've actually been reconning and IDing every single one of these families that we're going to be going after. And they went after them. And Americans are woefully ill-prepared for what's coming.
I think there's another thing that's disturbing to me, but there's a certain amount of cowardice that's involved in, there's certain people that when they see an attack like that happen and they're terrified of it happening to them, they will try to sympathize with the attackers. They will try to sympathize and almost position themselves to be on their side.
That's rampant right now. The anti-Semitism across the United States.
Crazy. It's
man.
like people came out of the woodwork. It's like they were hiding in the woods, and then all of a sudden you're seeing it openly.
Maybe I saw one where it's like we should boycott Jewish businesses here in the United States, and I was like, maybe just have them like put a star on their chest or something, or like maybe put a gold star on their business. Is that what you're suggesting? Like, because that is what you're suggesting.
Yeah. Have we not learned?
Evidently, we haven't. It took 6 million to being persecuted and killed. I mean, those Jews, man, from the Germans to the Egyptians to the Romans. Palestine didn't exist. You could go back 3,000 years to King David and then his son, King Solomon, saying that like this is the capital of the Jewish people here in Judah and Israel, Jerusalem. That is 1900, 1700 BC, right? We have to go to 80 AD, where after Jesus has already come here, now we have the origin of Judaism and them historically, not religious documents, like this is the origin of the Jewish people, is here in this specific land with very clear geographic references as to what it is, to then being the origin of the Christian faith with Jesus being there and then being crucified. And then 200 years later, Muhammad, and us learning that the Muslim religion also beginning there. The Romans destroy the temple in 80 AD, and then they coined the term Palestine for that area. For the 2,000 years before that, it had just been Israel. Egypt, the Romans, they're now conquered from every imaginable group of people for the next 1,500 years. Murdered at every opportunity leading up to the Holocaust. Going to post-World War II, 1947, the UN says, hey, it's cool that Israel has its own nation in the place that it has always been Israel. May of 1948, independence kicks off and every neighbor comes in to try to kill them. And now here we are in 2023 and we're still talking about boycotting Jews and hey, it's cool if we slit their throats, don't let them make babies, let's find from the river to the sea, get rid of the Jews. What the fuck?
It's wild. It's fucking wild. I would have never imagined this just 5-6 years ago. Never imagined.
5-6 months ago.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
100,000 people in London, marching, tearing down posters. And I've asked this time and time again, there's posters of the kids that have been kidnapped.
Yeah.
And they put them up in New York, they put them up in Brooklyn, they put them in LA. And there are hundreds of videos of people walking down to tear off these hostage photographs.
Young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to know why. Why don't you want to see a picture of a 9-year-old girl that was kidnapped and is now a hostage by a terrorist group in Gaza? Why don't you want to see that? Why are you tearing that down? And I think that the answer is it goes in direct conflict with the thing that they want to believe. And they think that it perpetuates a cycle of violence and that them tearing it down and that is them protecting the Palestinian poor, impoverished people, when in fact they're tearing down the victim, the Jew or the Christian or the Brazilian that was kidnapped that is now being held hostage in Gaza by a terrorist group of people and thugs. Why are you tearing that down?
Well, there's this very bizarre progressive narrative that, look, there's a reality of Gaza, that Gaza is essentially like an open air prison. That is a reality.
Yeah.
Those people are fucked. They're stuck there. And there doesn't seem to be a really good solution on the table. And I don't know what can be done, especially now, to change that. That's true. That is true. And there is a hostility, a deep hostility between the Israelis and the Palestinians on both sides. It's palpable. I've seen many videos of atrocities being committed by both sides, which is just a horrible consequence of war and conflict.
What do you think? I'm Israel. You're the Palestinians in Gaza. If every one of the people in Gaza laid down the arms and stopped attacking, what would I, Israel, do to you?
It's a good question.
Nothing. They've tried it 5 different times. They've literally stop attack. Israel has never, not one time in history, initiated any conflict. Every single one of those things that you're pointing to is a retaliatory attack by a terrorist organization. But if that was switched, where I, Israel, you, Hamas in Gaza, I take all of my arms and all of my protection and I laid them down. What would Hamas do? They would kill every single one of us. That's what they do. That's what they're sworn to do. That's their motto and the origin of their existence, all the way back to the Grand Mufti traveling to Hitler to ask, how do we solve the Jewish problem? Like, you want to follow from the Hamas to the Muslim Brotherhood, all the way back to the Grand Mufti, to Mujahideen, and you see the origins of like one thing, which is how do I solve the Jewish problem, is to eradicate and kill them. That is what Hamas came from. Not the Palestinians, not those poor people stuck in Gaza. But in that problem, if all of Hamas just went away, we would have peace. If they laid down their arms and they stopped murdering innocent civilians and raping women and killing babies, you'd have peace. If the other side laid down their arms, they would all be murdered, all 7.5 million of them, until they just were walking in blood through the Jordan River. How do you solve this problem? The radicals have to be eliminated. The terrorists have to go away. That is not, I'm not conflating the Palestinians and the terrorists. Those are separate things. But if there's 2.5 million people that are living in Gaza that are allowing 30,000 terrorists to run them, at some point, the olive branch cannot be extended from Israel when 30,000 people are using that region to launch attacks into their sovereign nation.
And we were talking about the propaganda that exists in America. What about the propaganda that exists in Palestine? I mean, what is their thought?
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, did you see the hospital that got destroyed?
Well, it didn't really, right?
No, it did not really.
No, but the New York Times said it did.
Yes,
the
it
New York
did.
Times said it was
And congresswomen.
which is insane, and they didn't retract it. They
Yeah.
said
You
it
take
was
horse dewormer, and and Israel destroyed a hospital.
yeah.
So evil.
It's so crazy that they printed that in the New York Times. I mean, that's the paper of record. That's the most important newspaper that we have in America in terms of if we wanted an objective source of information. Most people say, what's the best? Look, I used to deliver the New York Times when I was a kid. And I did it. It wasn't even that profitable. I delivered the Boston Globe was my main newspaper that I delivered. And then I delivered the Boston Herald as well. And then I got a New York Times route, and I was proud of that because the New York Times was the real newspaper that intelligent people read.
Yeah.
And it was a different plastic wrapper.
Yeah, yeah.
You got a
It was like
clear...
that's
you got
the
a
good stuff.
clear wrapper for the Herald and a clear wrapper for the Globe, but for the New York Times, I got a blue wrapper. And I was like one of the people that got to deliver the New York Times. And I remember thinking as a 20-year-old kid, like, oh boy, I'm delivering the New York Times. And when I would drop the paper off at these people's houses, like, that's a fucking smart house. Yeah. These people are reading the New York Times in Boston. And I remember thinking that I was proud of that I delivered the best newspaper in the world. Really, I literally wasn't that much money, and it was a crazy route because I'd have to go like a mile in between houses. Whereas like with the Boston Globe, I'd have like 5-6 houses on one street that I would drop off papers to. And the New York Times, I'd have this fucking crazy route. I'd have to go all over the place to get rid of 100 newspapers.
Yeah, and then now in 2023, they're circulating terrorist propaganda.
Yeah, and with no
recourse.
No repercussions. And what do they make? Did they even print a retraction? Did they say we fucked up?
You watch a missile get launched from Gaza. You know, 1/3 of all missiles that are launched from Gaza land in Gaza. Do you know think about how sad that is?
Is that real?
28% of missiles launched from Hamas land on top of the Palestinian people.
Jesus Christ.
And obviously they have no ability to direct any military target when these crappy missiles are being launched into Israel. They're just like populated area. Populated. I went and did a Fox News stand up in the city directly north of Gaza. That is the most rocketed city in all of Israel. And in like the one day that we were there, we had like 6 rocket attack sirens go off. You know, it's the weirdest thing that the Palestinians are allowing Hamas to literally kill them and pillage everything about their existence from them. Hamas is so rich and so powerful. $70 million from Iran. Every humanitarian ship that comes into the port, or right now that is being brought up through the Rafah Gate via Egypt into the south portion of Gaza, the moment that lands there, that is taken control of by Hamas. They then build underground infrastructure in the tunnels, and they build military infrastructure, and then they turn as whatever they can into rockets. And the humanitarian aid that is supposed to be distributed to the people, they have control of. Like, they have to go. Not the Palestinians. They have been so screwed by Hamas,
But the propaganda
and by the PLO.
that they encounter in Palestine has to be insane.
Yeah, they believe that they're on the good side. How do they sift through fact from fiction when what they're being told and being fed is being fed to them by Hamas? Like, how do
they get access to other information? And
And
how do they ever organize and discuss this openly without fear of losing their lives and being tortured?
the only time that you had consistent water and power going into Gaza was when Israel was controlling Gaza. Now that Hamas is running it, it is nightmarish in there. But they're still in charge. And they're being protected. And here in the United States, being called freedom fighters. Like, they are barbaric murderers and absolute terrorists that want nothing besides the genocide of when I saw the LGBTQ flags of LGBTQ stands with Hamas, mind is blown.
Isn't it hilarious that have you ever seen that meme that it says queers for Palestine and then Palestine for queers? Yeah.
They wouldn't live there
No.
hours. They'd be pushed off a rooftop or burnt alive immediately.
But they don't. But the narrative in this country is not that. Which is so strange. That there's sort of overwhelming evidence about the approach that they have to gay people.
Yeah.
But yet somehow or another, there's this "I stand with Palestine" thing that makes you a progressive.
Go to Tel Aviv as a gay person. Walk around with your gay pride shirt with your husband or wife of the same sex. Nobody will bat an eye at you. Nobody cares. Everybody's like, what up?
Yeah.
Normal. Man, if she and her wife tried to walk down the road in Gaza,
Yeah.
oh man. And it is so, this tinderbox that is that region with the West Bank, with the Golan Heights in the north, with Hezbollah, which is being supported by Iran. They're all positioned on the border, with Iraq allowing people from Afghanistan, the Taliban, to move through. Taliban being funded by us, $40 million right now is what we're continually giving them, the Taliban.
Why do we do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
What's the cynical side of you?
We want to recognize them as a legitimate government, and we are paying for them to start a democratic process of that. That is I think would be the tagline of what we want them to do. What it is actually doing is the same thing that happens when we release $6 billion to Iran in exchange for hostages. They then take that $6 billion. No, they're not using that exact money to fund terrorism with Hezbollah or Hamas, but I have one bank account that has an additional $6 billion in it, and now I'm able to spend $6 billion over here to finance other things that are going to destabilize the nation that I have sworn to eradicate, Israel and America. So cool, I'll happily give some more money to, they've been planning this for 4 years. The Quds, the Iranian special operations guys, training and preparing Hamas, advising on how to execute this. How do they get the intelligence to know what direction they need to fly with their paragliders, which areas, which you don't think they had scouts in all the kibbutzes around Gaza to identify which houses they're going to be targeting. How did they find all that stuff out? The people that Israel was allowing out of Gaza to work as agricultural workers, they were going into these areas, into these kibbutzes, into these houses, into these villages, doing recons for Hamas. So then when Hamas launched their attack on October 7th, they'd been funded. There's this amazing book called The New Rules of War. And The New Rules of War lines out all of the ways that America is not prepared to fight a war. By non-state actors, by corporations, by cartels, by violent extremist organizations, using proxy methods. So like we are at war with Iran, period. They are funding every single group that just attacked our American base in Syria, that attacked our American base in Iraq, that attacked and killed a bunch of Americans in Israel. That was funded by Iran and trained by Iran. But we don't have the appetite to try and fight the war that they're fighting because they're doing it in just such a, we want that World War II, right? We want Patton standing on top of a tank, coming across, being like, there's Rommel, go and get him. Like that war is never going to happen again. And we are just not ready to fight this new type of war under these new rules of war, which is fighting non-state actors, fighting proxy wars, fighting corporations funded by governments, fighting cartels that are getting subsidized by governments, all to destabilize the greatest nation to ever exist in the history of mankind, us.
You were saying that you think we're more vulnerable now than we've ever been before, and you're legitimately worried that the United States might fall.
I am more worried now because of the lack of preparedness of the individual. Americans are fatter than they've ever been. They are, even though there's more guns now owned, there are fewer per capita owned by individual with people that train regularly with them, people that are able to provide and protect for their families. All the metrics of measurements of like that family's going to be okay. That is the smallest that it's ever been. And our government right now is more vulnerable internationally than we've ever been. Our military is, even though I'm so proud to be a service member, when the Army tells me to do something, I 100% have no say whatsoever. I got to go and do it. And I'm really proud to be part of the most elite fighting force on the planet. I think we are the weakest that we've ever been for a variety of reasons. When you put all of these things together and you just take a step back and like the aggregate, like the accumulation of all of these different factors make me be like, holy crap, we are vulnerable. And the only way to combat that is the individual to start taking their own security and preparedness seriously. Get less fat, get more healthy, go and train, go and buy a gun, go start exercising your freedoms. Like learn what it means to volunteer in your school. So you have like, cool, you can't start your own school. Cool, you can't homeschool. Well, get involved in your kid's school. Like you got to do something because if we continue down the path that we're in, we're done for. Like soon, not in like a generation, like right now. I'm scared. I'm gonna drink water.
Jesus Christ. Whew. There's a lot of people freaking out listening to this right now. But that's good.
There's a 20-year special forces dude that in the past 3 years has been in 4 gigantic international crises in 3 years. I've spent my entire adult life doing this. I run companies that train people to do this. Like the sole mission statement of the large company and every single subsidiary under them ultimately goes down to preparing people to provide for their families, to protect themselves, and to expand freedom. Like, I was just going to, the wave top, my elevator pitch would be like, that's all we do. And I'm scared. But for us not to hit the Titanic, it only took a couple of degrees change, right? And for that Titanic not to hit that iceberg, it would have just been like early enough us turning it just slightly. I don't think we're past a point where that can still be changed, where we can still avoid what would be the catalyst of destruction for this nation. but the individual has to step up.
Well, the individual, but also we have to have changes in the approach that the government has.
Oh, yeah. Lobbyists have to go away. These gigantic PACs have to go away. We have to have age limits and term limits. Like, if these things don't happen, our republic is in a bad place. How cool would it be if we just had age and term limits within Congress?
It'd be pretty nice at this point.
That'd be pretty
I mean,
rad.
when you see Mitch McConnell just fucking Windows 98 out.
I mean, Dianne Feinstein
Yeah.
voted the day before she died.
Yeah.
Did you see her aide that was like hitting her, being like, "Hey, you're supposed to vote yay on this.
Right.
Hey, vote yay."
Yeah.
And she's like,
That should be illegal.
I mean,
How is it not?
how is it not?
Yeah. That's like she's not voting anymore. You're voting for her. You're dictating how she should vote.
Yeah, and that
she's one of the
aide-
most empowered people in the world.
That aide was making that decision off of the lobbyists that were telling her what to do.
Right.
All the special interests that were saying, okay, on these issues, this is how you're going to vote. And then that aide went and effectively voted for a congresswoman. Dude, that is...
It's insane.
Yeah. I love this meme of George Washington with like the 4 tube nods. He's like, me and my homies would already be slaying right now. You know, it's true. You know, they would.
Yeah. But people don't even recognize what a danger it is. It got so little outrage in the mainstream. So many people were just so ignorant to what was going on. It's almost like there's too much to pay attention to when things like this happen. People are so overwhelmed by... That's also the thing about the news cycle of today. You are being bombarded constantly with things to worry about. And then when there's nothing to worry about, then they hit you with climate change. When there's nothing to worry about, then they hit you with something else.
Yeah.
There's like a constant barrage of things to occupy your attention. And meanwhile, decisions are being made that slowly erode everything this country is supposed to be founded for.
Yeah. We are the greatest nation to exist in the history of mankind. And in the cycle of dynasties, of empires, we're at the right limit of the average one of those. And, you know, Rome didn't die in a day.
Right.
You know, it was a slow decay of the things that made them special. We're still the greatest ever. And it's not, you know, and I will be positive and I will be hopeful that how do we fix this? Like, what do you think, Joe? Like, what are the things that an individual can do in a day? It seems so insurmountable, right? Like, oh, Tim, like, I can't fix Congress. Like, I don't get to pick the next president. I'm only in charge of me. Okay, be in charge of you. What does that look like?
Right. We need a polar shift in the understanding of the importance of that. And I don't think you're getting that from many places. And I think really the only way you're getting that from is individuals like you speaking about it, people talking about it online, people that aren't captured by these massive institutions and corporations that do have a very specific narrative that they're discussing always and constantly. That you're not getting these kind of conversations. They don't exist in the mainstream news. They don't exist anywhere else other than independent media. And that's what's so strange. And it's one of the reasons why independent media has become so huge is because people are confused. It's like, why am I not being told what's really going on in some sort of an objective sense? Why am I not being informed of all the variety of things that are playing against the things that make this country great? Why is the concept of freedom being downplayed as some sort of a far-right perspective, which is so strange?
Yeah.
So strange.
Fitness is far right.
Fitness is far right.
Eating healthy is
eating
far.
Eating is racist. Eating healthy is racist. It's so crazy.
No.
It's so crazy that they've managed to marginalize almost every positive thing and put it into a category of either racist or discriminatory or homophobic or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. There's a fascinating, not a study, example of China combating information-wise. So like TikTok, the advertisements that are being fed to, let's say, a 14-year-old boy, right? He's seeing like soft porn. He's seeing like scantily clad girls. He's seeing like drug vape things. And in America, that is the constant ad that he's being fed. And, like go and party, be a TikTok star, be a YouTube influencer. Like these are the things he's being fed nonstop. That exact same age person in China on a China app, they're talking about becoming a strong contributing member of the Chinese society, being good in school, being a good athlete.
Yeah. Scientific accomplishments.
Night and day,
athletic
A and B.
accomplishments. Yeah.
A, America, they're fed things that destroy the individual. B, in China, they're being fed things that make the individual stronger and a better person in that society.
But the only way that you can get that is you have to give the government control, and the government has to be doing it for the will of the people. They have to be doing it for the overall good of the nation. That's what their perspective is. When they're trying to make stronger Chinese citizens, they're doing it because of a very specific government mandate that's trying to strengthen China. They want their men to be more manly. They want all these things to take place that will strengthen their nation.
Yeah, and what do they want from Americans?
They want us to be weaker.
They want us to be weaker. They want us to be fatter. They want us to be more mentally unwell.
Yeah. But I don't think people realize that that's what it is. I think when people are trying to be a TikTok influencer, what are they saying? Well, they're saying, well, I don't want to work in a fucking insurance company. Like, what other job can I – can I just, like, make wild, wacky videos of me eating and I can make more money than I would ever if I got a college degree? Like, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you want to be the richest person on the planet right now? In Austin, be in construction. Be an electrician. Be a plumber. Do you know how much those people are charging right now here?
Yeah. Well, this is a boom town.
They're worth like $200,000 average income of a good electrician here in Austin right now. You go to 2 years of trade school to become an electrician, right? You spend a year and a half, 2 as an apprentice. And then you go and you start working for a couple of years for a guy that owns a shop. You go and start your own. Your electrician business is going to be worth $10 million in 3 years here in Austin. But it takes a little bit of work. I'll give that to you. But you're not going to do the work to be worth $10 million in 3-4 years from now to do something that that is another wild thing is like some of these jobs have been demonized. You know, it's not cool to be a plumber. It's not cool to be an electrician. It's not cool to be a roofer. But I'll tell you what, it's pretty cool to have a badass truck and be able to go hunt whenever you want, be able to hang out with your kids and make it every single weekend to their lacrosse or hockey games because you have successful businesses and you just did a little bit of work for a few years to build that thing.
It's very bizarre that we've somehow or another demonized blue-collar work and put white-collar work on a pedestal. Whereas, like, the freedom comes from owning your own business. Yeah. That's real freedom.
Sovereignty.
Yeah,
that's
real
right.
Personal sovereignty. Not having to report to some asshole that doesn't give a fuck about you and might fire you as soon as the company takes a downward turn. Oh, you've worked at that company for 25 years? Sorry. Here's a month's severance pay. Kick rocks.
Yeah.
And that happens to people over and over again.
All the time.
That they get so disillusioned and so disenfranchised and depressed. And so then the doctor puts them on medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they start eating crap food, and then they stop sleeping, and then they stop being intimate with their partner. And
Woe is me.
Yep. And it just,
yeah.
And that has been the cycle for the past 30 years. Well, we can break that cycle, right? You get up early, you go and work out. But man, I got a 9 to 5, and I have to leave at 8 to commute. Got it. Wake up at 6.
Yeah.
You get an hour to work out. You get a great breakfast from the chickens. Then you just walk out and you pick up like these fantastic 10 grams of protein, micronutrient-rich things, and you put them in a pan with some just butter. Don't use anything else. Stay away from them seed oils. Then you come home from work. You got a 30-minute commute through traffic. That sucks. Go do jiu-jitsu. Come back and have dinner with your family. Put the biggest smile on your wife's face after you guys pass out in bed. Dude, repeat for a couple of years. Start your own business.
Yeah. People need to hear that, and they don't. They don't hear it anywhere, which is crazy. They hear it from a few places. But
I look at like the Evans, Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah.
Mike Glover at Fieldcraft Survival, Johnny Primo at Course of Action, Jack Carr from, not just his success as an author, but also as a businessman. Like we could just go down the list of all of these guys that just grabbed the reins of their horse and started directing it in the thing that they were passionate about, with discipline, a process, and hard work, those three things yet again, and look at where they are right now. And I'm like so proud to call them friends, but more importantly, I'm so proud that they're Americans, because that's the idea. And it's not this unattainable thing. Like, you're calling it unattainable because you don't want to do the work necessary to be successful at it.
Wasn't Mike Glover put on some very fucking bizarre list?
Yeah, he was called a radical extremist by the FBI.
Because he was telling people
how to can food and pickle things.
That you should be prepared in case something goes south.
Yeah, they
How
thought
bizarre is that?
This administration would and will not call Hamas the radical extremist, violent extremist organization and terrorist organization that they are, but will call MAGA people radical insurrectionists. The two-party justice thing that we got going on right now is dangerous for a republic. Mike Glover is an amazing dude. He served his country for 20 years. You know, he was my boss for a little bit on the special operations side. We went to sniper school together. Saved my butt in sniper school. Do you know the story?
No.
Dude. Okay. Not that I need to like talk about how amazing Mike Glover is, but he's an amazing human. All those dudes, you know, Andy and Mike Sorelli, like just great people. But so I'm writing a book right now called The Purpose of Pain. And my sniper partner during sniper school, he is dealing with a bunch of stuff, trauma from his last deployment. And I am such a selfish little prick. I am more concerned about being like the number one shooter in the school than my brother that is next to me every single day, right? Like, we're sitting here on a stalk. I'm with him for 20, 30 hours at a time. And we're sitting here looking at the back of a tree. We're discussing every single thing, but I'm not listening into what he's actually telling me, and he's pouring it all out there because I'm too concerned with, like, you know, being Special Forces Sniper School honor graduate or something stupid that I was at the time. Ultimately, during the field shoot, which is a must-pass event during sniper school, in the middle of it, he stands up and he quits. Literally just stands up and says, he makes a wind call in the opposite of the wind direction, so I see a left to right, so we should take the target, dissect it, and hold into the wind so the bullet travels and hit the target, right? So I see a left to right, and he gives me a right call. And I was like, hey man, give me a different call. You're missing this. And he's like, I'm freaking out. And I see his eyes start like darting around, and he's just like getting the pressure, and he stands up. And he's like, I quit in the middle of sniper school. And so the instructors are like, all right, Tim, you're out. I'm like, I'm not out. Like, I still got a shot. Such a selfish prick. I just want to go back to that 26-year-old kid and just smash him in the face. Anyways, so I'm like, I'm going to graduate. I just need a bullet and a target. I could do it right now. Let me lay down. I'll make my own wind call. And they're like, this is sniper school. It's you and a partner. So they walk over to the people that have already shot, and they say, hey, I need one person to volunteer for Tim with one target, with one bullet. It's a go, no go. He gets a first round hit. He graduates. He misses. He's out of school. And this is to like the pool of people. Mike Glover's hand pops up. I know him. We're both in this special mission, like this unit called the CRIF, or the SIF at the time, the Commanders in Extremist Force. It's a special operations, counterterrorism, hostage rescue unit within special forces. So like, it's a very small pool of people. So I knew who he was. And his hand goes up. The instructor, check this, he goes, okay, what if your graduation depends on this shot? Mike's words wouldn't change my answer. I don't know him. I've never shot with him. He volunteers and effectively puts his graduation go, no go of Special Forces Sniper School on me to come and lay down with me to make a shot. So they get me an M118 LR. It's a 175 grain match grade bullet for my .308. And they walk over and they go, here's your bullet. There's your target. So we measure it. It's slightly over 700 meters. We get our wind call. We take the shot. And as the bullet travels, you see a thing called trace. It's the displacement of vapor in the air. And it looks like this laser beam. And when you're shooting really far, especially with a large kind of slower bullet, 2,600 feet per second for a 175 grain bullet, and that you see this laser going directly towards the target. So the moment I press that trigger, Mike's like, center hit. before it even hits, right? Before we even see that impact of that 40 by 20 target. And bing, you see the splash, but it takes 3-4 seconds for the sound of that impact to reach us. So like I see the trace, I know it's going to be hit. Mike stands up and he just starts walking off. Boom, center impact. And they're like, where are you going? And he's like, with Tim as graduates, like no big deal, just volunteered to shoot with a dude that he has no, like that is the Mike Glover that I know. And that was the Mike Glover that was condemned, that has spent 20 years serving his country in the military, and then spent an additional 10 years as a contractor working for the 3-letter agencies protecting America. And then they have the audacity to label somebody like that. It's infuriating.
Has he been removed from that list?
It's odd that you asked me that, because I've kicked, when I'm building these manifests to fly these people out of these countries, I want to make sure I'm bringing back good people, right? So we check to see if their names and their passport numbers and their date of births are on any lists where I wouldn't want to bring one of these people into the United States that's on a list. I have a bunch of times, even in the past couple of weeks, I was like, man, I might just run Mike to see if he's still on there.
Yeah.
But then I didn't want to, because I didn't want to like run a name and him to be on there or him not to be on there, and then them to look at me to see that I ran his name unnecessarily.
Oh, God.
You know? Yeah, that's not good.
What a fucked up dilemma.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if he's on that list. He shouldn't be. The dude's an amazing American.
Well, the motivation to put him on that list is so fucking strange. He's teaching people to be prepared.
Yeah. I'm like, shadow ban. If you try to share one of my posts today, you're going to get a notification from Instagram that I am sharing misinformation. And if you try to follow me on Instagram, if you go to Tim Kennedy MMA, you won't find me. You have to go down until I have like, couple million followers, and you will not find a verified. You'll see 20 fake Tim Kennedys until you find the verified Tim Kennedy. And then if you click on it and you say follow, it will give you a thing that says Tim Kennedy spreads misinformation. And you have to say, okay, follow, for you to follow me on Instagram.
Didn't they tell you that you had to remove certain factual posts?
Yeah, I did. I deleted them all.
And what were they?
One was that Epstein didn't kill himself. The other one...
What the fuck does that have to do? Imagine that being a controversial position.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 of them. That was one of them.
That was one of them.
The second one was I listed economic problems within the American government that a couple $1 trillion was missing before 9/11. And
the Donald Rumsfeld speech.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He specifically said, but he did not say missing.
Right.
He said unaccounted for.
Oh.
So the third party fact checker that I got a strike from, because I said that we were missing over $2 trillion or $2 billion before 9/11 that then went missing after 9/11. They said, no. He didn't say missing. He said unaccounted for. So you're spreading misinformation. That was strike number 2.
Did you go back and edit it, or did you just have to delete it?
No, I just deleted the whole entire thing.
Just to keep your account.
Yeah, to keep my account, but I'm still like I said, it can't be searched, won't pop on Discovery, can't share my posts, can't follow me.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing the thing. And then the third one was my son and I were playing Nerf. And it was a video in like first person of me chasing my, at the time, 7-year-old with a Nerf gun. And they said that I was violated the community guidelines of sharing violence and encouraging violence. And it was a Nerf battle between me and my 7-year-old, which I also deleted. But that post currently still says like your strike is from violating the community guidelines of encouraging violence and
Nerf guns.
A Nerf battle with my 7-year-old.
What about video games? If you play like some like war simulation video game, is that a violation as well?
I don't know.
I know they ding people on hunting. Like you have that Montana Knife Company hat Josh from Montana Knife Company just posted something that he's been attacked because he showed a hunting photo because his wife killed late season elk with a rifle, and they said a photo of this Nosler rifle, this beautiful rifle, the elk that they shot, the animal that they harvested that they're going to eat, and that he got notification that his account cannot be shown to anyone other than his followers.
It's insane.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
A great small business guy that gives back in incredible, another great human, where one of my friends, Af, he's a command sergeant major in 7th Special Forces Group. And they do this thing in this like change of responsibility where they give gifts. And normally it's like something dumb, like a lighter that's engraved, right? So I hit up Josh. I was like, hey man, one of my homies that I went to war with this guy. I love this man to death. Af is like one of the greatest humans to ever walk the face of the planet. Can like I buy some knives and like can you hook me up, with a good deal? He makes the 7th Special Forces Group red color for their the emblem that you wear on your beret, that red, he puts on the handle of the Speed Goat. Then he makes it black, and then he takes the crest and he puts it on the blade, and then he sends it to him to give to his dudes. And like, never saw an invoice, just like Josh being Josh, dude.
No, he's the best. I went pig hunting with him recently. Such a good guy.
Yeah.
And amazing business, and an amazing story of a guy who he came up with a name, Montana Knife Company, and copyrighted it or patented or whatever in I think he was 19 years
That's
old.
right.
Yeah. And the company's only been around for a couple of years and is fucking gigantic. It's huge. It's killing it.
Well, they make great knives.
They make amazing knives. Amazing knives.
I'm trying to talk him into making some fight. So like, obviously, while I didn't want to get murdered by a bunch of terrorists when I was overseas, so I had stuff to like take care of me. And I send Josh a photo of me with one of his bigger knives. It's like I kept it right underneath my body armor as I was cruising around that kind of contested area of southern Israel, and that knife is just like sitting underneath my body armor. And thankfully, I never had to use it, but it would also have been a picture I would have sent to Josh, and he'd be like, dude, I don't want to see this. Yeah. You are such a psychopath.
Right.
It would have been a blast, though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he probably doesn't want to see that, but it's just insane, that kind of censorship, and I don't understand it. I don't understand who it's like. Who is following him in the first place? I mean, he makes a hunting knife It's a hunting knife company.
Who does it benefit for them to censor me?
I don't understand it. It's leftist people that are involved in these organizations that have a very specific ideology that they adhere to, and they think that anybody who is pro-America is in some way, shape, or form negative.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. And I'm sure I'm on some of those lists.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm like weirdly, I fucking sneak through.
You're kind of too big to mess with.
It's odd. Well, I'm friends with Zuckerberg, which is nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I can text him and go, hey, man, what the fuck is going on with this?
Yeah.
And he's a good guy, but his company is run. I mean, he's a publicly traded company that is filled with people that are in the tech industry. And I think a lot of those people are out of their fucking mind.
Yeah.
They're out of their fucking mind. And I had a conversation with Elon about it last night where we discussed it. He says it's a death cult. He says these people in a death cult. They think that there should be less human beings. They think the human beings are the problem. And they just have this specific ideology that they want to push on everyone. And anything that's even remotely opposed to that, like hunting, is most of these, how many of these people fucking eat meat? And somehow or another they think that hunting somehow or another is in opposition to this leftist position.
Yeah. X has gotten really fun.
X is so much fun now.
It's so much more fun.
That wild motherfucker spent $44 billion, and we discussed it last night. We did a podcast last night, and he said, I don't want to sound melodramatic, but I did it to save humanity. And I think it's true.
The only place that I can have a rational conversation and actually say what I think, as you should be able to do in the First Amendment way.
And not worry about getting banned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying crazy, like you could go and read every single thing that I've ever said on Twitter. I'm not saying wild stuff.
Right.
There's no like inappropriate, like I try to say some funny things sometimes, but not like any of your freaking hilarious comedian friends, like the dude that just walked out.
Shane Gillis.
That guy is so funny.
He's the man.
Dude, he is so funny.
Yeah. I got him working out.
Dude.
I got those guys working out. I
Good.
brought my buddy Brian Simpson was here. Duncan Trussell was here. Matt McCusker. I told those guys, I go, if you want to work out, I will take you through a workout. I go, I won't kill you. We're going to build up slowly. So today was the third day. I've got them pushing themselves, but nothing crazy.
Nice,
I don't want to break you down. I don't want you injured. I go, I will develop a very specific program and get you up to speed. And as long as you stay consistent, you will see radical changes. And
in your
they're
life in every measurable way.
and they're seeing it. They're
That
seeing
is
it.
so
I got
cool.
them cold plunging. I got them in the sauna. They wanted to quit. They wanted to quit. Like, we'll just do 10 minutes. I go, fuck that. I go, you doing 20 minutes. I threw water on the rocks. I go, now let's make it harder. I go, we're going to do 20 minutes, man. Dude. And I go, when it's done, you're going to feel good that you got through those 20 minutes because those last 10 are going to suck.
Yep.
Because you get in the first couple minutes, like, this is not that bad. I go, right. It's not that bad yet.
Yeah.
Wait till 10 minutes comes around. 10 minutes is you're going to feel uncomfortable. But you can survive it. And you just have to learn how to just accept the fact that you're suffering.
Yeah.
Just
Dude,
deal with it.
That's so awesome.
And then they get in the cold plunge afterwards. And in the beginning, he could only do like a minute. He's like, fuck this. And I'm like, listen, man, it's all in your mind. And you're going to realize that when you do it a second time and a third time. And now he's doing 3 minutes.
So
now he
easy.
gets
And
in
you get
there.
out and that endorphin, serotonin,
He
dopamine
said, dude, it's like
pump.
I'm on Molly.
Yep.
I go, yeah. Yeah, because what happens is your endorphins, your dopamine ramps up by 200% naturally in a healthy way. It makes you nicer to people that you run into. You feel better, and it lasts for hours and hours throughout the day.
Who's the Stanford neuroscience? Huberman.
He's amazing.
He did a podcast on the benefits and also the approach and methodology and process of cold plunging and sauna.
Yeah.
And like I just copied and pasted that whole entire yet again, here it is, discipline, process, and hard work. I took his process, the way that he recommended to do this for both sauna and cold plunge. It's just life-changing.
Huberman got censored by Wikipedia. You know what happened? Huberman, I had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on my podcast, and Huberman made a comment, and that comment was, I hope that more presidential candidates submit to long-term conversations like this. That's all he said. They removed all his published papers, all of his peer-reviewed, all of his work, all of his papers that are scientific papers. They removed all of that from Wikipedia. You no longer see
How is that
his
possible?
How is it possible? How is it? How insane is that? And they locked down his account where you can't edit it anymore. They literally and they said something about, I don't know what negative thing, I don't want to even say about it, but it's fucking insane. So what does Elon do? He offers Wikipedia $1 billion to change their name to Dickipedia.
Is he just a crazy person?
He's a wild motherfucker.
Dude, that's wild.
He's a wild motherfucker. He really wants to fight Zuckerberg. He said it last night. He wants to fight him in the Coliseum. He said, I'll fight him in a house with a mouse. It was like, I don't give a fuck. Let's do it. I'm like, you really want to fight him? He's like, I would love to. I'd love
crazy.
to. Let's do it.
Yeah, he needs to start training. Make sure you get him on the
Yes. He thinks he could just do it with no training, but which is, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Someone who's like very smart at one thing thinks they're great at everything.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, because I was trying to discuss with him. He's talking about the size difference. I'm like, yeah, you need to roll with someone who's like 145 pounds, like my friend Gabe Tuttle at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, who could just fucking strangle you.
Like Demetrius Johnson,
yeah.
go take this tiny little human and like, good luck with that.
Yeah, good fucking luck.
Yeah,
good luck dealing with that badger.
There's
that
some
skillful,
there's some
intelligent
dudes that,
badger.
wildly gifted, physically, intellectually. I mean, I think he was an underappreciated, one of the best ever. Like,
he's the best expression of martial arts I've ever seen. And when he was in his prime, I don't think anybody was better than Demetrius Johnson.
do you watch Francis's fight?
Amazing. He won.
He won that
He
fight.
won that
He
fight.
won that
They
fight.
know he won that fight. He won on one judge's scorecard who was honest, and I think the judge only gave him one round, where I think he should have given him 2. Should have won by more than 1 point. But at least one judge scored it right, and then that other judge who scored it 96-93 for Tyson Fury
out.
should go to jail.
Get out.
Get the fuck out. And then the other one, was the other one. It was 95-94. in favor of Tyson Fury.
Looks so great.
Or 96, 95, whatever it was. It's look, he fucking dropped one of the greatest heavyweights, if not the greatest besides him, of all
Clubbing
time.
left hook too.
Amazing. And he looked for that left hook over and over again. It was clearly something they were looking for. And look, he's fucking incredible. To have your first boxing match ever against the lineal heavyweight champion, a 6'9" fucking juggernaut who's been beating everybody, and rock him, and then rock him again in the 8th round with a barrage of punches. I mean, it was fucking amazing performance. Amazing. One of the greatest combat sports performances in the history of the arts.
Yeah.
Of the history.
I was like, blah!
I was screaming. My dog freaked out. I was like, it's okay. It's okay, buddy.
Yeah.
Daddy's happy.
He's scary.
Oh my God, he's amazing. And when you see that guy's origin story, I mean, you want to talk about a man who persevered. That guy, for 14 months, he made his way from Cameroon to Morocco, and 7 times got arrested and sent back to the fucking Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
And made his way right back to Morocco, and finally made it across to Europe on a raft, was in prison for months, and then lived as a homeless person in a fucking parking garage in France. It's amazing.
The movement that he had made from Cameroon into Morocco, I've traversed multiple times. It is hellacious. I mean, it is like the most unforgiving terrain with radical groups, with property owners, like water to water trying to travel. The water's controlled by warlords. So his story is just like so inspiring.
It's incredible. It's a comic book story. It's like an origin story in a movie that you wouldn't believe. And to have this guy go in his first ever boxing match against a guy who nobody gave him any chance.
Yeah.
And to have the Las Vegas odds, like the online betting odds in the last round in his favor was fucking incredible, because it was like 14-1 at the start of the fight.
Yeah.
And at the end of the fight, he was favored. And he should have won.
Dude.
He should have won.
Yeah.
They fucked him. But they didn't, because the world saw it.
Yeah.
Like, you could write all the bullshit you want in terms of scorecards. The fucking world, including boxers, all the boxers that were there said that he should have won.
Yeah. But now he gets another gigantic payday. His like perceived worth is through the roof, skyrocketed.
Tyson
right?
Fury's not going to fight him again, I'll tell you that.
No.
He didn't want no part of that. They tried to bring that up. He was, no, I'm going to fight Usyk for the world title. Like, nobody wants to see that, buddy. Yeah. Nobody wants to see that.
But who are they at the PFL? Who are they going to put up against Ngannou?
I don't know. I mean, if I was Ngannou, as much as I love watching him fight MMA, I would tell him, you're going to make so much money in boxing.
Yeah.
And I think he might be able to beat them all. I think he's that good. I think he's that much of a freak. Well, he was always more of a striker than anything else anyway, but he's such a quick study. If you look at the fight with Cyril Gane, he beat Cyril Gane with grappling with a fucking completely blown out knee.
Yeah.
He took an
never
immense
really
chance.
grappling.
Right.
Like he's never has been a grappler, has no real background in grappling.
Right.
And then he goes and out grapples a guy that has been doing this for a long time. It's
Amazing.
so impressive.
He's an incredible person. He's incredible. And the fact that he gambled on himself, he vacated the UFC heavyweight title, which is the most prestigious title in all of combat sports. You can say anything you want about the world heavyweight boxing champion, but everybody fucking knows that the world heavyweight UFC champion will fuck that dude up in a real fight. That's the reality of the world. That's the reality of everybody knows that, especially everybody who knows.
He's the baddest dude on the planet.
He's the baddest dude on the planet. 100%. And the only person that has
a chance
is John Jones. And John Jones, unfortunately, just tore his fucking pec off the bone.
That video was heartbreaking.
Horrible to see. Horrible to see, because I was really looking forward to that fight with Stipe. But in a perfect world, Francis makes a fucking kajillion dollars, and then the UFC re-signs him, and then he fights John Jones for the most epic encounter in the history of combat sports.
Dude.
That is a perfect world.
Yeah.
That's a perfect world. But at least Francis, he got his flowers from the whole world.
Yeah.
The whole world saw it. You can fucking lie all you want. You could have your bullshit scorecards. You could have your paid off judges. You could have your corruption. You could have your nonsense. Everybody knows what happened in that fight. And what happened in that fight was Francis Ngannou beat the best heavyweight boxer maybe ever. Maybe ever. Right. And then what happens if he fights all those other guys? I mean, what
Murders him.
happens? That motherfucker hits so hard. And I was always wondering, like, how is his power with the big gloves on? Well, we fucking know.
Yeah.
We fucking know. The look on Tyson Fury's eyes when he went down in the third round from that left hook, he was like, oh, Jesus.
It was it was a clubbing.
Yeah.
You know, there was not a lot of ass behind it. He hadn't stepped into it. He didn't turn his shoulder over. He just hit him with a hook.
Yeah.
And it put him all the way to Career Street.
Yeah, he was on Queer Street for sure. And, you know, there was a moment in the second round that I yelled out. I was like, oh, he hurt him there. In the second round, there was a moment in the clinch where he hit Tyson Fury with an uppercut, but then the commentators didn't even notice it. He hit him with a right hand over the top. And the right hand was a short clubbing right hand. And you see the look in Tyson Fury's eyes where he's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That power is fucking extraordinary. But not just the power, but the intelligence to deliver that power in the most high-pressure situation imaginable. Your first boxing match is against the Gypsy King, a 6'9" fucking phenom who's one of the best
To ever
boxers to ever do it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Sick.
Amazing. And he just fucking cashed his own check. I mean, he is the man now. I mean, he's in demand everywhere. Everybody saw that fight. It was a huge fight. Yeah. And now they're talking about him fighting Deontay Wilder. They're talking about him fighting some other people. Anthony Joshua stepped up. Whoo!
Yeah. I love pugilistic sports. You know,
Yeah.
and as crazy as this world has been, wrestling, boxing, and MMA and jiu-jitsu, it has been so fun from this last ADCC to even UFC the past 5, 6, not the most recent card, but 3 or 4 of them this year have just been dynamite, tons of finishes.
Dynamite.
Lots of, you know, like watching Sean Strickland, his rise. And
Crazy.
like beating what I thought stylistically to be a very hard matchup. So like, God, I love martial arts.
Oh, it's amazing.
Another thing that I wish every single American would pour themselves into.
Yes.
Because it is, the reward that you get from it is
Well, everybody wants to talk about the
indescribable.
bullying crisis, but the counterintuitive solution to the bullying crisis is teach bullies how to fight. Teach everyone how to fight.
Yeah.
And guess
Not
what?
just the victims.
Right.
You take, I want every bully to come into my jiu-jitsu school.
Yes.
Because they won't be bullies anymore.
They won't. And what it is a deep insecurity and this desire to impose yourself on other people to somehow or another make yourself feel better because you are lacking. And if you are not lacking, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Do you think Francis Ngannou's a bully? He's not. He's a very nice guy.
All the most savage dudes on the planet.
The nicest guys.
They're the nicest, sweetest,
Yeah.
graceful people.
Yeah.
And like another Jordan Peterson philosophical perspective on, you know, a good man isn't a useless man. A good man is a man that is capable of violence but chooses to be kind.
Yes.
Chooses to be graceful. And I 100% agree and subscribe
Be
to
a
that.
monster and learn how to control it.
Just an absolute, my mom hates this word, savage.
Yeah.
But a savage under control is somebody like that. Would you rather be the gardener in the war or the warrior in the garden?
Exactly.
Right? Like, I want to be able to create. I want to be able to write. I want to, you know, like, I want to be the contributor and a good lover and a good father and a good entrepreneur.
Yes.
But like, let's call a spade a spade. Like, I will wear your skin. You know, like, I will destroy everything about I will salt the fields. I'm talking like scorched earth, permanent destruction of everything that you love if you come at me or towards mine.
Yeah.
But inversely, my kids will never have ever understand the level of violence that I'm capable of to be as kind and as gentle as I am to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want that for everybody.
On that note, let's wrap this up with that. That's perfect. Tim Kennedy, you're the fucking man.
No, man, I love you. Thank you for giving people like me opportunity to talk about the things that we love and believe in. I was really struggling. Like, man, I don't know if we can talk about this, but thank you.
It's complicated and it's difficult, but it's important. And thank you for being you, because there's not a lot of people that can express it the way you have.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.